Okay, these are you have microphones in front of you. Each two of you share one of the microphones. Okay, so when you need to speak, you need to press the center of the microphone, and you will be using to express your statements. Okay. That's it. I'd like to remind you, before we get started, that this is like the final negotiation. In many ways, it's your exam. I don't want to put pressure on you, but I will be evaluating your performance during the negotiation, okay? Let me remind you, because we have, luckily for you, I have the experience from yesterday, and one thing, well, this will be recorded, by the way, and we will be able to watch it. I'm planning on doing a peer-reviewed evaluation, meaning that the feedback will be given by your fellow classmates, the ones from Group A. So at least I need to organize it, but I'm planning on doing it. So that said, let me remind you that this is a negotiation. What do I mean? Okay, you have 5 minutes, each of you, to express your ideas and your positions on most of the topics. But then, after those 5 minutes where you have expressed your opinions and your positions, then you have to negotiate. So we will divide the discussion in 5 different sections. And on those sections, you need to, find a final resolution, okay, among all of you. The idea is that we do around 20 to 25 minutes per section, okay? So in those 25 minutes, you need to reach an agreement, okay? So keep that in mind, okay? So this is basically it. We will divide the discussion or the negotiation in 2 separate parts, the ones where you present your positions and your ideas, and the other ones where we negotiate. Okay, we will have a small break in between, and after that we will continue. Yes, basically that's about it. I'll close the door now, and we'll get started with the whole exam, okay? Okay, so good afternoon to all of you, representatives of the 23 member states in this room today. We're here to discuss the multi-annual financial framework among all of you, and the way this will proceed will be, I will give you maximum 5 minutes per member state to present your position, and then after that, we will divide the discussion in 5 different sections. The first block, or the first section, will be about the ceiling and the new resources that we have in order to reach that ceiling, all our income. Second section, second block, will be about administration, okay, of the European Union. The third block would be about the cohesion funds, the overall, and also how do we distribute them into research and innovation or connecting Europe, these 2 particular headings. I would like you to focus on these 2. Then the fourth block would be the one dealing with the CAP, with the CAP, okay, and we will discuss not only the proposal, or with the Commission's proposal, but also the terms of conditionality in this particular heading, okay? And the final section will be the one concerning the correction systems, okay? Basically rebates. So with that idea, let me tell you one thing, or a few things about this multi-annual financial framework. The first thing is that I want you to remember that this is a multi-annual financial framework, and the multi-annual word means that it has 6 years. It's like a forecast for 6 years, meaning that it's not a still picture. So take this period into consideration when you present your proposals, when you present your ideas, or when you develop your bargaining let's say, strategies, okay? This is a proposal that has the purpose, the Commission has worked hard to try to change certain habits that the European Union has had in previous years, you know. We want to focus more on policies and headings that are much more specific, and we want to change a little bit, to start to move towards a new European way of budgeting, okay? We know that we're facing certain realities with Brexit and certain security and defense issues, and this budget in many ways represents this idea, this way of facing these new challenges. And I want also to remember that aside from the technical budget, the European Union, due to the COVID crisis, has developed the Next Generation funds. These Next Generation funds are also part of the overall spending of the Union, so please keep that in mind when we try to find or to reach an agreement. With that said, and hoping that we have a very fruitful and positive discussion, I will leave the floor for the representatives of the states so you can introduce your position. The way we will work, we will start from Germany on the left, and then we will continue with all the rest of the member states, and we will finish with the position of Belgium. Okay? So with that said, Germany, the floor is yours.
Hi. So, good afternoon, everyone. I speak today on behalf of Germany. So, as you may all know, Germany is one of the founding countries of the European Union. As one of the first member states from the beginning since now, Germany has always advocated for European integration, and even during arduous times, we have supported and encouraged European cohesion, and we have advocated for solidarity between all the European countries, indifferently from their power or their time forming part of this organization. So, we firmly believe that power comes from the strength of a united group rather than one single country, and even the largest and most powerful member states of the EU, as for instance Germany or France, cannot face alone the possible problems that may appear, and in fact we will even be too small on an international scale to be able to ensure and fulfill our interests. Nonetheless, if a collective effort is made by all the member states, we will see Europe rise alongside the other leading countries of the world. So the Union of Europe has been beneficial for everyone, and it has guaranteed the stability and the growth of the European economy. Europe integration has permitted create the world's single largest common market with the euro as our single currency and the assurance of free movement, not only for goods and services, but also for capital and people. So we must never forget that we are all neighbors, and therefore our unity favors a peaceful, secure, and prosperous environment, as it can also help encourage a cultural exchange between European civilizations. So Germany supports the integration of further states on the EU. We must predicate and encourage reconciliation among all the country members and fight for democracy so it can continue to expand around us and the world. And in these challenging times, faced with an unpredicted worldwide pandemic and a health crisis, we have demonstrated together our capacity to adapt and overcome all these types of obstacles. However, we have been able to notice some of the system flaws, and therefore I hope we can continue to work together to better reorganize our resources, to acknowledge the problem and find adequate solutions.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Estonia, please.
Hello everyone, Mr. the President of the Council, dear colleagues. We are here to discuss and obviously negotiate about the next multi-annual financial framework from the period 2021-2027. We agree on the fact that after the pandemic of coronavirus since 2 long years, the EU and all our citizens are confronted at a severe crisis, economically, socially, and more than anything in terms of health. To respond at this issue, the EU set up multiple programs like common purchase of vaccines or common debt. We made the right choice. I spoke about the COVID crisis, but another emergencies are present on all territories. Climate change, weakened democracy, international isolation, structural inequalities. And that's just a non-exhaustive selection. Like our responses to the COVID crisis, we, the representatives of Estonia, have always been partisans of a better and stronger European integration, for deeper collaborations between us. If we are here, it's also to provide answer, but above all to take the responsibilities that our citizens gave us. And for us, at this time, our responsibility is to increase the budget allocated to this MFF. 1,001 billion proposed by the Commission isn't enough. Another 10 extra should be necessary to achieve the different works that we have to do, and especially those I presented. Among those, we should stop to feed our population with foods which have gone around the world by supporting our farmers thanks to the CAP, and then including and recognizing them as a fundamental part of the EU society. And I could understand that's really matter for a lot of us. And it's why the proposition of the Commission reducing the allocation by 15% until 333 billion it's probably the wrong track. I can also hear the concern of some around this table about mismanagement of EU funds. And to be sure that any euros of the EU's budget is used wisely, I totally understand that we should establish direct payment. The probably only guarantee that funds are well spent. One of our other principal struggles should be to fundamentally consolidate the cohesion of our territories. For me, like I said before, the EU is profoundly need global politics to solve inequalities among regions. And the growth of the budget should enable the EU to take the lead in public investment in its economy, which is critically impacted by the crisis in many areas of it. Thus, instead of decreasing the cohesion fund by 10%, like the Commission proposed it, we rather propose to increase it by 10%, to be proportional with the global MFF. To finish, the last goal that, for me, this MFF should represent is a fundamental consolidation of our position as a leader of innovations and in the fight against the global warming. Those two topics couldn't be dissociated. And funds for R&D should be raised to be consistent with all our ambitions. Ladies and gentlemen, I saw some of you are taking note and asked how to finance all our new projects. Don't be worried. I took into account the importance of balancing the budget, and it's why I will encourage adding new resources. If we take the example of the CO2 tax border, the Commission says that we can expect additional 14 billion per year, which may represent alone 84 billion during all the period of this MFF. We should then be able to show our international leadership on the struggle against the climate change, to balance the budget, and to deepen the European integration. With all this program, we, the representative of Estonia, think that we can synthesize all the different positions, consider all the fears, balance this MFF, and act a strong and efficient European Union. Thanks for listening to me. I will turn off to the representative of Italy.
Okay, thank you very much. Estonia, please. Italy, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon. First of all, say that we are open to negotiate here, and we as a country, we are waiting for making like freely and make an agreement at the end of this session, because that's the objective of the MFF, to reach an agreement that could benefit all the countries for equal, or not for equal, but to make more equal the conditions of these countries. First of all, say that Italy is one of the founding members of the UE, that it's a member since the first aggregation, and that means that we feel like we have like a European spirit, and we have to make a move and reinvent that European spirit that all the stuff it's searching, because with the Brexit, the Union it's maybe questioned by all the countries here and all the countries outside the Union. And it's a time to make a move and demonstrate that the Union has very clear objectives about all the things like the agriculture or the cohesion funds, on all the themes that it's going to be talked here. So with the COVID crisis, like the other representatives say, there's new important issues like health, like technology and development and research that are a plus with the traditional things like agriculture or social cohesion, or in our case, it's so important immigration and all the part that manages. And with all that stuff, we think that we should increase the general budget, but we have to know that we are in a special context like COVID crisis and Brexit, and not all the countries can contribute like the same type. So we have to be clear with our arguments and make a move to reach an agreement on all the things, because it's important to make all the European citizens feel like European again, because I think that maybe there's a misrepresentation of all the things and all the important stuff for all the countries that are here. So thank you that's the first agreement state for Italy, and I feel like we could reach an agreement for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, please, Austria.
Yes, dear Member States, dear President of the Commission, as the representative of Austria, I would like to express the position of my country regarding the multi-annual financial framework for 2021-2027. Our country is part of the European Union since the 1st January 1995 and has 90 deputies sitting at the European Parliament. Austria is proud to be part of the EU and to share its common values. Firstly, we want to address the issue of
Please, can you put the mask because you're sharing the microphone? Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Firstly, we want to address the issue of the overall size of the budget. The budget has been established to 1,074 billion for the next 6 years. This budget constitutes an increase of 114 billion compared to the previous budget. This increase can, of course, be explained by the COVID-19 situation and the absolute necessity of the European Union to help the member states to go out from the crisis. Yet, Austria does believe that this increase is too high. We would like to decrease the budget, and we propose a budget of 1,050 billion, which constitutes in itself an increase of 90 billion. So, concerning the introduction of own resources, Austria demands a system of new own resources in order to reduce our part of GNI's contribution and establish a new and more efficient system of taxation. The new own resources was supposed to be based on revenue of last resort, as it is stated in the Rome Treaty, Article 311. Yet it is absolutely not the case, as the budget is composed for more than 71% of GNIs of the member state contributions. We agree with Germany and the frugals, so Sweden, Denmark, and Netherlands, to solve this issue with bargaining power during the negotiation, as we are all net contributors. We also want to remind that the withdrawal of the UK from the European Union implies a better use of own resources that have become now essential. We agree with the new EU Own Resources Plan of the Commission to ensure fair taxation, fight against tax fraud, tax avoidance, and tax fraud. Now we're going to speak about the very controversial issue around the CAP. As a rural country with 32% of our total area that is agricultural, we do believe in the necessity of such a plan. The MFF for 2021-2027 will provide 350 billion for the CAP. We agree with the Commission and we should keep that budget as it has already decreased by 50% since 2000. Yet, we must underline a big issue. The countries with a high percentage of large farms will save more money under CAP, and we think it is highly unfair. Indeed, we believe that CAP should promote the ecology and support little farms and their farmers, as we have in Austria, for instance. Concerning the conditionality, we are totally in favor because we believe that only the countries that ensure farmers their basic rights and that are eco-friendly should receive the funds. Concerning the cohesion and structural funds, we agree with that budget because we know how important are social, economic, and territorial cohesion of the territories of the EU, and even more after the Brexit. But we think that this is principally 15 countries that beneficiate from the two structural funds that are the European Regional Development Fund and the European Social Fund, and we feel it is not fair, and this scheme does not necessarily reduce the regional disparities. Austria is also in favor of increasing a bit the budget for innovation and research, since we think it will give the member states the ability to transform, innovate, and adapt to an ever-changing and competitive environment. We agree with the budget of 65 billion towards research and innovation, and the proposal, no, we don't agree with that because the proposal was 87.7 billion, and this proposal has been rejected to 82.7 billion, and we will agree with the initial proposal. Finally, we are on the same line with Finland as we advocate for the digital transition. For the MFF to European public administration, we do not agree with the Commission because we believe it is not the priority of the European Union, and we would like
30 seconds left, sir.
Okay. And we have to decrease the budget, and we feel that 74 billion are too high. Our priority is really to fight against the coronavirus because we have locked down our population who are not vaccinated this week, so I think it is really a priority, and in France it's going to be complicated too, I think. Thank you for having listened to me and the position of my country on those issues. Austria believes in the European Union and its capacity to answer the needs of all of its member states.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me remind the representatives that you have starting 5 minutes, and we're going to be strict with the time. Okay, please, the representative of Spain.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, as the representative of Spain, it is in my belief that the objective of this new MFF is to build a stronger, more integrated, more resilient, united, and solidaric Europe. That being said, the MFF should keep its role in building economic cohesion and equality among member states in order to improve the functioning of our common market. The objective of having an integrated internal market is the most important value for economic prosperity and employment and for the well-being of European citizens in general. This new decade is a decisive one. It is basically our last chance to combat climate change and desertification, which, if not resolved, will not only impact Spain at first, but all the other member states as well, and thus will be environmentally, socially, and economically disastrous for Europe as a whole. So it is very important that the MFF should take into account the fact that we need to make ourselves more equal so that we can work better together to combat all these urgent issues. Other challenges that I'm concerned about as a representative of Spain, apart from climate change and desertifications, are migration and border management, internal and external security and defense, and other demographic challenges, such as rural exodus. Given the seriousness and gravity of these issues, it is important that this new MFF should be able to address all of them. That being said, all the member states should contribute proportionally with what they can, and the fund should be distributed to each country according to their necessity and absorption capacity. That being said, the CAP and the Cohesion Fund are key elements in resolving all these issues and to help equalize all member states, so they should be expanded. In conclusion, as we are in a period of crisis filled with unprecedented challenges, I'm looking forward to negotiating with all of you and to reaching an agreement on these issues and that need urgent resolving for the sake of the well-being of the citizens of Europe as a whole. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, representative of Spain. Now it's turn for the representative of Slovenia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Our presence in the Council of the European Union aims to overcome what we consider the three major challenges for the next multi-annual financial framework. First of all, we believe in creating a more cohesive Europe. Second, we believe in creating a more ecologic and freer Europe. And three, a more resilient, just and innovative Europe. About a more cohesive Europe. We believe in building a stronger European Union, able to hold the differences of its nations and its citizens. And that's why we must create a wider budget that supports and helps those countries with more difficulties. The overall Commission proposal budget is not enough to hold the economies in these, let's say, strange times that we are living right now. Commission has mainly fallen on cutting, I think, cohesion policy minus 10% and the cap minus maybe 15%. So we can't accept those proposals at all if we really want to create a more cohesive Europe. Second, a more ecologic and freer Europe. We are in favor of all those policies aimed at improving the environment and the health of the planet. We are the first who are willing to protect threatened species and natural areas in the European Union, ensuring the safety of drinking water and bathing water or improving air quality. However, conditioning certain economic helps, aid, to countries in a difficult economic situation in the name of the environment and in the name of the European values can be dangerous. A more resilient, just and innovative Europe. This is my last point. We accept the next generation European Union as a recovery plan to use the COVID pandemic as a chance to emerge stronger with investment of 806.9 billion euros. We believe that we need to empower and to be much more efficient in terms of administration, of course, but we will not accept any tricks at all in the name of this European Union, in the name of these European values, that under this framework, some countries such as France, Austria, Denmark, Netherlands have linked the rule of law into the new budget as if nothing had happened. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, the representative of Hungary, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, my fellow representative of the European Union member states. As Hungary, we have a policy really important and very important for us, and it's based on four fundamental commitments: cooperation, integration, development, and international law. Some of the same objectives as the European Union. What I'm trying to say is that this new multi-annual financial framework it's not really it's going against these objectives. Hungary economy is fairly open and relies strongly in international trade. We have been working with most of the relations we have with some of the countries here present. I want to remember that in 2020, the European Union provided an unprecedented response to the coronavirus crisis that hit Europe and all the world. It's a stimulus package with 2018 trillion euros in current prices. Taking together the funds with these funds, we help to repair the economy and social damage. But how is this possible? How is this possible if we are making cuts on the budget? I apply to all the countries here present that we can reach an agreement and really rethink this budget. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, the representative of Hungary. Please, the floor is yours from the Czech Republic.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Sorry, before you start, let me remind you that this is recorded, and unless you are close to the microphone, your statement won't be recorded. So please try to talk close to the microphone. Okay? Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, so the Czech Republic is one of the newer members of the European Union and has been a member since 2004. And our whole economic development for the last decades can be labeled as a success story, also thanks to the investments and subsidies made by the European Union in the Czech Republic. So, as a former member of the Eastern Bloc, we are on our way to finally overcome the effects and burdens of the planned economy and the economic mismanagement of our socialist past, and our GNI is getting closer to the EU average year by year. So, for example, we have low unemployment rates, high economic growth, and a big service sector. We work closely together with other Eastern European countries, such as our neighbors Poland, Hungary, or Slovakia, as we share a common past and we therefore have similar interest in the EU. And as a European Union as a whole, we face multiple challenges in those trying times. As other representatives have already said, there is first of all, the issue of the Brexit, which leaves a big financing gap in our multi-annual financial framework. The House of Commons of the UK has estimated that the net contribution of from 2014 to 2017 was at 11.5 billion euros from the UK alone. So that's a lot of money that we need to find a solution how to finance that. Also, other pressing issues are obviously the climate crisis, and one that is most difficult for us as the Czech Republic right now, the Corona crisis, because it has put a lot of pressure on our economy. OECD data suggests that the economy of the Czech Republic will recover once the effect of the pandemic has worn off, but also that our GDP will only grow modestly in this process. So the Czech economy will be relying on the continuity of EU subsidies and investment programs. Therefore, the priorities for us for the upcoming MFF include that the cohesion and structural funds will not be cut. And also we advocate for an increase in funding and for research and innovation, and simultaneously to strengthen the student mobility in the European Union, as this can benefit us all and create value for us. So we are in favor of increasing the MFF from the proposed 1.1 trillion that the Commission proposed to 1.4 trillion. To finance that, we propose to abolish rebates, as we perceive them as non-transparent, unofficial, as an unjust practice. And we believe that this money could be used in more constructive ways that benefit us all. Also, we advocate to raise the member state contribution, so the percentage each member state pays in respect to their GNI. And finally, we advocate for implementing a financial transaction tax. So we believe with those measures we can achieve to finance a bigger budget for the upcoming MFF. So yeah, finally, I want to say that we as the Czech Republic are open and prepared to discuss these points to reach a conclusion that can benefit us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next would be Slovakia, please. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the representative for Slovakia. We may be one of the more recent members here and one of the newest countries, but our commitment to the European project is no less strong than many of you here. So we seek a united Europe. If COVID has taught us anything, it is that the issues we face in Europe, we don't face alone. Now, I know many of you believe we should exercise fiscal restraint at the moment. However, to solve the current COVID crisis and the future geopolitical issues in the East, we need to band together. And the only way to do this is through increasing the MFF further. Now, many people might believe that we need to balance our books. We are not opposed to increasing a digital sales tax or carbon tax. One considerable part of the budget is the CAP. We strongly disagree with the proposed cut of 15%. We acknowledge that there are potential downsides of the CAP, but thanks to the Fisher reforms, this waste and overproduction has been dramatically cut. The CAP not only ensures that farmers around Europe have a stable income, but it also helps keep food prices consistent. As many of you are aware, we are going through a period of inflation due to supply-side disruption. Whether it is only transitory or not is yet to be determined, but if we cut the CAP, we risk opening up serious inflation on our food prices. As we are all aware, inflation has seriously damaged Europe in the past, and we can't let this happen again. This fear of inflation probably explains why many of my colleagues here want us to exercise fiscal restraint, but if we follow that, we may risk having the opposite effect. Another important aspect of the budget are the cohesion and structural funds under the ESIF. Not only is it the right thing for us to do, but investing in this fund makes economic sense. Infrastructure is one of the most surefire ways of achieving economic growth. This is why we disagree with the planned 10% cut on these funds. Now, as Slovakia, we have greatly benefited from these funds in the past, but we can still go further in ensuring interconnectivity within Europe. In Slovakia, 45% of our population lives in rural areas, and the funding into infrastructure has benefited us greatly. Now, there are some who may view that these funds only as a way for recent members to play catch-up with Western Europe, but this view is utterly wrong. In Slovakia, we are now world leaders for nuclear power, and we have built new towns and cities that have won awards for their renewable and green aspects. Instead of viewing these funds just as a loan or opportunity to improve countries, it should be viewed as investment in Europe's future, and the lessons we learn in Slovakia or Germany or Ireland can be applied all throughout the continent. This is, of course, without mentioning the funds that are spent on research. In Slovakia, we received 1.2 million euros in 2014 for researching methods on detecting infectious pathogens, and as the past 2 years have shown us, these costs are negligible compared to a global pandemic. Another topic that we are discussing is how we are funding this administration. Now, Slovakia isn't a core administrative hub for the EU, but we still see the value in the running of the EU's institutions. And of course, today we will also be discussing rebates. We do believe in an interconnected European Union based on equality. We see that these rebates go against these principles. Not only do we question why some countries should receive rebates and others don't, but even within the countries that are receiving rebates, there is inequality. Why should Sweden receive more in rebates than Germany relative to GNI? This also just makes the complicated system even more complicated. I look forward to negotiating with you all today, and I hope and believe we can find a common ground for the betterment of the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The representative of Finland, please, the floor is yours.
President of the European Commission, honorable representatives of the Council of the European Union, I'm pleased to be here today representing Finland and would like to thank you all for the hard work you have put in this past year to present yourself and your country's unique outlook on the 2021-2027 multi-annual financial framework. So the EU, strongest defender of human rights and democracy, is a living example of our ability to overcome even the toughest of times. The EU was created 75 years ago because of a plea to ensure that never again would European countries come to fight each other. And after having suffered the consequences of war, genocide, and economic crisis, European countries joined forces to reconstruct Europe and create a base of constructive cooperation which would allow us to grow stronger and more resilient together. We know that the history of the EU is unique and that our unity and cooperation is what makes us strong. We are currently facing a time of crisis. The global pandemic, the economic deceleration of Europe, rising extremism and populism, and finally climate change are today our most imperative challenges. These universal issues will be best understood and confronted by our European Union through constructive cooperation, and as it is best to seek answers together. As Finland, we strongly respect that the balanced budget proposal of the European Commission for the 2021-2027 MFF budget. However, in light of the recent sanitary crisis, we believe that some changes are needed to reach a more efficient distribution of our resources. And as Finland, we propose a slight reduction of the MFF budget of about 1.7% of the EU's 27 countries' GNI. This moderated raise of the previous budget would demonstrate the EU's unity in times of crisis. It would allow us to reach our current economic competitivity and sustainability goals, and also restructure our expenses to reach maximum efficiency. So to this end, Finland's 5 priorities of the EU budget negotiations are: firstly, immediate structural environmental change across Europe, demonstrating the EU's commitment and global leadership in climate action, and most importantly, committing to climate neutrality by 2050. Secondly, we wish to reinforce and emphasize our common EU values and the rule of law that we have seen challenged in recent times. Thirdly, we wish to promote further innovation in every EU country and transition towards a circular economy. And ultimately, we wish to embrace more measures ensuring social inclusion, such as investing in training, education, and research, with the aim of strengthening the EU's economy and our citizens' well-being. The EU values of tolerance, justice, and rule of law now more than ever need to be upheld. Climate action now more than ever is required. As previous holder of presidency of the Council of the European Union in 2019, Finland will be committed to ensuring constructive cooperation on its part and reaching a balanced and positive solution to the MFF debate.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, the representative of Romania. The floor is yours.
Okay, good evening, fellow delegates and the representative of the Commission. My name is Cristina Galdon, and today I'm here on behalf of the state of Romania. Romania joined the EU quite recently, and we are advocating for more integration as we are in the process of joining the Schengen area and committed to adopt the euro. Having received and examined the proposal of the Commission on the next multi-annual financial framework, and after all the debates that we have already been holding during the past weeks, I would like to remind the position of my country to this Council. First of all, we find the overall ceiling of the budget to be insufficient, as the European Union has assumed many important objectives throughout the strategic agenda, and we are nowadays facing several new challenges. Therefore, there is a need of a substantial budget in order to successfully implement these objectives. We agree on the national contribution of 1.11%, but we might, as I said before, think that is not enough. And we also agree on the necessity of updating the system of own resources in order to make it simple and fairer. As we all know, the EU is nowadays facing new issues related to security, migration, environmental challenges, and of course, the withdrawal of the United Kingdom. This is why we ask for such an ambitious budget that will actually allow us to develop internally and that will situate us externally on a better and strategic, powerful position. Regarding this internal development, we need a more egalitarian and unified union. That's why we believe that the only way of doing this is by maintaining the allocations into the common agricultural policy and the cohesion structural funds on similar levels as the past budget, and we do not agree on the cuts that the Commission has proposed to them. Both of them, mainly the CAP, has been the backbone of this budget since the beginning, and nowadays they still have an essential role regarding the development and modernization of the entire Union.
Inside of the allocation of the cohesion fund, we ask for more flexibility in order to support transfers among funds if they are necessary. And we also are really looking forward of the allocation into the Connecting Europe Fund, as we really believe that the transportation, energy, and digitalization are key for building bridges among our regions. Regarding to the percentage of funds that are dedicated to the Green Deal, we think that they are really important, but we do not believe that they should take such a big percentage of the fund, mainly of the cohesion fund. We think that the transition to a greener economy will be better supported by other sources rather than the cohesion funds. We really expect also a strong recovery package coming from the new generation funds, as we, all of us states, have been really hit by the COVID-19 crisis. We cannot forget, of course, that inside of all of this, we need to follow the rule of law. As it is necessary to the correct allocation of this budget, still, I doubt on the correct application of this conditionality, as I think the limits that are being proposed are too high, and they could create administrative difficulties and unnecessary burdens that will ultimately directly affect on our population. Last but not least, we clearly stand in favor of the elimination of all correction system, mainly of the rebates, as we think that this has been an outdated remedy that is not needed anymore as the situation and as the current situation and the EU spending budget has evolved, and it just creates a lack of transparency inside our union. I trust on the capacity of this council in order to reach a consensus that will benefit us all, and I think is highly necessary. Romania is working day by day in order to reach a greater integration, and we don't want to be a burden to this, but we want to help on the negotiation. That's why, once of all, I stress the importance of this unity and the integration towards this budget and for the overall decisions of this council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Remember the 5 minutes, okay? Next, the representative of Lithuania, please.
From the Lithuanian government, we believe that the EU budget is not something to be trifled with, especially in times of post-pandemic and economic recovery. We have all lived and are living one of the most difficult times of modern era, facing important challenges such as the just mentioned COVID, climate change, new financial but also social challenges as immigration or coexistence between states in this world that is so globalized. Therefore, we firmly defend that it is not wise to even think about lowering the budget from which so many countries depend on in this Council, to deal with the problems that we have in front of us that undoubtedly do not have an easy solution. I appeal to empathy and generosity between member states and to act as what we are supposed to be, a union. The points to which we will give special importance during the negotiations will be the following. First, the CAP, the main policy of interest of our country, since it is the main source of income for many of our citizens. The situation that we have experienced has hit the rural area a lot, as well as the small and medium-sized farms, which need urgent aid, so this cannot be reduced. The agriculture, forestry and food industry in Lithuania employs twice the share of people than the EU average. The second point which we will refer to is policies aimed to the environment and climate change. We are very worried about this issue because if we do not take urgent measures, it could be too late, and the rest of our matters that we will discuss here today will have not the slightest importance in time. Last but not least, we would like to address the cohesion funds, which will gain importance since the UK is not in these negotiations anymore. Meaning that if the United Kingdom, a frankly powerful country, there has been a movement that has led them to leave the Union, maybe if the countries that have just joined the Union and are still adapting to it are not supported, they could run the same block since they do not have as much support as the bigger countries. We are aware, of course, that greater efforts will have to be made, efforts greater than ever for the budget, efforts greater than ever to get the budget forward as the UK has left the Union and we are in a delicate economic situation. For this reason, we are willing to negotiate the distribution of money for its greater efficiency and cohesion amongst the present here today. I hope that we are all in the same ship together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next would be the representative of the Netherlands. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, greetings to everyone, to all the representatives and the Commission. Well, we all know the European Union has been a successful institution for almost 80 years now. Since our creation, we have accomplished so many achievements that have made our continent a peaceful and prosperous and really developing group. We are living in a huge community where our nations don't have borders, we use the same currency, we have a really open market. Who could have guessed this? Who could have guessed this 70 years ago after the Second World War? And you're probably asking yourself, why is this Eurosceptic country starting his speech like this? First of all, we wanted to say that we don't define ourselves as Eurosceptic. We don't want to be seen like that just because our methods and thoughts of how the solutions to our problems are going to work are different. The last thing we want is for you to think that we are doubtful for the Union or its use. But we do want to make sure things are done correctly and that nobody steps on nobody. That being said, we do think that this institution needs a huge reform, mostly in how the money is used and distributed. Even though the MFF for the next period has improved from the last ones, we still feel like it's abusive towards some countries from the Union. For years and years, the Netherlands and other net contributors have had huge money losses because of the abusive policies. While we do share that money should be invested on net recipients in order to make a balanced community, some proposals were too much for only being called solidarity. For example, it is estimated that between 2000 and 2015, the 0.4 total GNI of the Netherlands went to European funds that never came back to the Dutches. And that's a ton of money. And in the midst of a crisis where everyone has been affected, Dutch citizens are spending a lot of money on net receiver. This money situation is hard to swallow in our country because not only us, the representatives, are seeing how we keep generating losses, but a question is popping on some Dutch citizens. Why should we stay in the European Union if we have been losing money for the last decades? After all, you have to keep every citizen happy with the European Union existing and try to avoid these thoughts of doubting the institution, right? The last thing the Union needs is have its citizens against her. We feel like in an era where all the nations are being affected by the COVID crisis, the immigration problems, the Brexit, some countries are just asked for too much. Our main objective for the next funds, and where we think a lot of the community's problems would be solved, is to make an efficient European Union. The inefficient funds have always been a huge problem for every nation. Too much money being spent on outdated places like the CAP and the cohesion funds, money spent in order to fill bureaucratic numbers that don't actually attack the root of our problems. Another spot we would like to discuss is the condition of the funds. We think that a big remodelation of what's the criteria for giving those away, because it's one of the main reasons why this money gets misspent in the first place. Should we still give away the money where we think it's more urgent, or in a place where there is a good governance condition in order for this money to actually be useful and efficient? We feel like some minimal conditions about how the funds should be used have to be enforced, focusing mostly, as my other partner said, in economic efficiency, digital transition, and ecological transition. Because right now, in a constantly changing world, in which we have a lot of new issues to solve, the Union can afford to stay back and not adapt to those modern times. Part of this money should be shifted over into innovation projects, research, because that's where the real progress is being made. Our community has been facing difficult times for quite a while now, and it's in our hands to adapt to those new challenges or stay in the past. It's our choice. So, after all, the Dutches, we are not trying to leave the community or trying to boycott every single thing. Europe has to be together in order to advance in one of the toughest times from the modern era. And our citizens deserve way better than what they're getting right now. But we do feel like in order to reach this, a lot of reforms have to be done. A lot of money has to be reinvested, and a mentality switch is needed. Thank you everyone for your attention, and I hope this meeting ends up with a lot of fructiferous deals.
Thank you very much, representative of the Netherlands. Next, it would be Ireland. Floor is yours.
Dear President, dear delegates, good afternoon. Today I speak in behalf of Ireland, and as a representative, I'm looking forward to today's negotiations. As part of the European Union, we agreed on and came together to promote peace, its values, and the well-being of its citizens, offer freedom, security, and justice without internal borders, while also taking appropriate measures at its external borders to regulate asylum, immigration, and prevent and combat crime. To establish an internal market to achieve sustainable development based on balanced economic growth and price stability, and a high competitive market economy with full employment and social progress. To protect and improve the quality of the environment. We all know this list is really long. Tackling these problems that we really have to combat starts with allocating funds to ceilings and supply specific projects with the resources to do so. Therefore, this discussion is crucial for the working of the EU. In today's negotiations, I'll bring forward arguments based on sources in order to demonstrate why we should not increase the EU's budget, but make the use of the budget more efficient. When trying to raise a discussion about the size of the EU budget, first, we must overcome more important issues, as mismanagement and corruption, to make funding more efficient. There are many examples, as for example, the CAP in 2009, where 700 million euros, which is more than a third of the total fund, have been misspent. If we want to increase the money that arrives at the projects to support our objectives better, we as the EU should rather impose more control and transparency instead of raising the budget. Ireland therefore proposes to even decrease the ceilings for some of the headings of the EU and concentrate on making funds more efficient. Only when decreasing the ceilings of some headings, Ireland is willing to increase the ceilings of others. Overall, the budget of the MMF should stay the same. Besides that, the introduction of resources to this budget should be based mainly on contributions dependent on the gross national income. Adjustments and reallocations of those funds, as I said earlier, could include a conservation of the level of allocations to the CAP, but emphasizing conditionality on sustainable expenditure. It could also include a reallocation of the cohesion and structural funds from a reduced cohesion fund to other funds, as the European Regional Development Fund, European Social Fund, and others. Within these reallocations and cohesion and structural funds, in order to promote research and innovation, more investments in the ESF should be introduced. And also, within this reallocation and cohesion funds and structural funds, to promote a better connected Europe, a redistribution from the cohesion fund, again, to other funds as the ERDF and the ESF should be introduced. Also, we think that a cut in the fund for administration and the abolishment of the correction mechanism is necessary. I'm calling for an outcome-oriented and cooperative discussion today that considers the needs of all member states. Compromises will be necessary, and it is most important to have a long-term plan for the budget for the next several years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, it would be the turn of Sweden. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I speak on behalf of Sweden. First of all, I wanted to say that we are thankful for being here today, joining this negotiation, because we think that just united we can face the future threats and make a difference. We believe in the Union Europe values defined in the Treaty of Lisbon, such as inclusion, tolerance, justice, solidarity, and non-discrimination. Sweden's proposal for the next 7-year multi-financial framework is expected to be around 15% less than the current MFF budget, due to the United Kingdom leaving the EU and COVID crisis. Also, one of the reasons why we want to reduce the MFF budget is because the Swedish government calls for a modern budget, because new priorities such as security, migration, research, and climate change crisis are on the table. And yeah, I said climate change, because that problem is real. When we say climate change or sustainable development, we see how most people react. They glaze over and switch off. So here's the first point: don't switch off, because climate change isn't just words, it's a real threat, and a really scary one. The rise in the global temperature over the decades is a matter of public record. So it's a real problem, and it gets worse every day. And as a country, we think that nowadays we should move forward, evolve, and find a sustainable way of growth. That's why we think that it's impossible to not do it together. We need to be together in this, and we give a lot of importance to the funds of research and innovation, because innovation is the solution. Because that won't be possible if we don't increase those funds here. We should take a look into allocating part of the MFF budget into innovation and digital, which just takes 14.7% of the budget. We need to start putting efforts into creating ecosystems that encourage innovation, research, and development. The bad thing here is, from where do we get the money? Now that the UK exit and the pandemic crisis are on the table. Well, we think that we should allocate that money efficiently by prioritizing and giving it directed to the actual needs, and be based on favorite loans and non-grants. And we consider that this should be achieved by reducing the Common Agricultural Policy, which takes 29.7% of the budget, and the Structural and Cohesion Funds, which takes 34.5% of the budget. Both of them take a really big part of the budget, and we don't feel like right now, with all the refuge crisis, the pandemic crisis, and the global warming threat, they should take that much amount of the budget. It should be allocated better, but I'm not saying that the CAP is not important, or the cohesion fund, because obviously they are. And we know that the CAP also takes care about the global warming, but is really what we need right now? Is that the real solution right now? Because we are in 21st century, not in the 20s, and now priorities are now in the table. So we feel like the budget should be modernized to the actual needs. Also, another thing that we wanted to talk about is conditionally, because it may sound Eurosceptic, but it's not. We just want efficiency, and we want to end with mismanagement and corruption. So these conditions are a minimum, and we think that all the Union Europe member states are able to keep up with these conditions. And yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, representative of Sweden. Next, it would be Portugal. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm the representative of Portugal. Thank you very much for being here in this difficult time of crisis. The representative of the states members have a responsibility towards our citizens to reach an agreement of the multi-annual financial framework. Firstly, I would like to make a brief introduction to Portugal's economy in order to understand better the negotiations we're about to do. Similar to those of other Western European countries, Portugal's economy is now dominated by services. Manufacturing constitutes a significant share of output, while agricultural output is relatively minor, accounting for less than 3% of output. Crop yields and animal productivity in Portugal are well below the EU average, but nearly 1/3 of Portugal's land area is used for agriculture. Since Portugal's accession to the EU, a large inflow of structural funds, private capital, and direct investment have fostered and sustained development. Most of the problems Portugal has had over the decades have been solved with the help of the EU funding. Like, for instance, last year, Lisbon was awarded with the European Green Capital. This wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the funding of the EU. The same happened with transport and communication. As I've said before, Portugal is below the EU average productivity for agriculture, even though 1/3 of the land is used for agriculture. So the main reason we want the CAP to be improved not only by increasing the budget, but also to be able to reform it to be more efficient. One of the problems Portugal and the whole European Union are worried, as it should, is the climate change. Portugal increased the use of alternative energy sources. The largest wind farm opened in 28 of the largest farm of the photovoltaic farm. This was with the help of the EU funding for research. This means that with the EU funding the EU funding is a necessity towards a greener Europe. In the last Eurobarometer conducted in February-March 2021, the image of the EU and the trust in the EU had increased and reached the highest level in more than a decade. Portugal was the country with the most trust in the EU institution, 78. Meanwhile, the European Union level was at 49. Now, with that I've shown you the result, I want you to know that the main objective of Portugal is to reach an agreement in order to make the EU greater. And to achieve that, we need to focus on the implementation of the multi-annual financial framework together with the Next Generation EU Recovery Instrument, including the high-profile legislation on rule of law conditionality for access to the EU funds per member state. One of the points we also need to talk about are the rebates, as they represent principles of injustice and inequality, and also the implementation of new own resources, so we have budget to increase our multi-annual financial framework. So to conclude my presentation, I would like to add that we are all after the same objectives, and Portugal is willing to negotiate with other state members in order to reach the agreement that benefits us all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Portugal. Next would be Poland, if I'm not mistaken. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, fellow delegates and representative from the Commission. I'll be speaking on behalf of Poland. As a country situated in Eastern Europe and one of the largest beneficiaries of EU funding under the current cohesion policy, Poland unequivocally objects to any cuts in the EU budget. In particular, we reject the Commission's proposal of cuts of 1.11% of the EU's GNI, and especially more ambitious Finnish proposals to limit the EU budget to 1.7% of the GNI. The latter proposal would equate to a 23% cut of EU funding to Poland, which could have disastrous consequences to our economy, especially in the context of the coronavirus pandemic. Right now, EU funding is more vital than ever. A cut to the EU budget could potentially jeopardize the economic recovery of Poland, which is set to emerge out of an economic crisis with a moderate recovery of around 3% in 2021, according to a recent World Bank report. With this in mind, Next Generation EU funds are fundamental to the post-COVID recovery of Europe as a continent. Poland, alongside other EU member states that are part of the Friends of Cohesion Policy Group, recognise this and are firmly against any proposed cuts to the EU budget. For these reasons, we believe that the budget should be increased by 1.3%. In addition to this, there are certain aspects of the new MFF that Poland are against, namely the introduction of new own resources measures and the introduction of new correction systems and rebates for wealthier EU member states. But above all, we are against the rule of law mechanism that will impact the conditionality of EU funding. We believe that these new measures are highly divisive and will exacerbate existing tensions between Western and Eastern Europe according to economic lines, which is not only deeply unfair, but also violates the egalitarian foundations of the EU. We do not believe that economic stimulus packages that are aimed to stimulate the economy should be tied to wider political agendas that seek to restrict Polish sovereignty and autonomy. So we will veto any proposal that is conditional on this rule of law requirement, as we believe that our judiciary is independent and unrelated to the EU's economic affairs, and it should remain that way. Our ally Hungary is prepared to join us in this commitment, so we believe that concessions should be made across both sides to achieve consensus, with attention given to the individual likes and preferences of each member state. In the case of my country, Poland is committed most strongly to the preservation of the cohesion funds and the common agricultural policy, as both areas of funding greatly impact the Polish population and are instrumental in maintaining the stability of our growing economy. Therefore, we would be against any cuts to these areas of the budget. However, this statement is not to say that reform is not necessary. We believe that the CAP, cohesion, and structural funds are in need of reform, but this does not translate into a reason to cut funding altogether. Instead, as a government, we propose that macroeconomic conditionality should apply to all EU policies, not just structural funds, and we should consider scrapping the N+3 rule for the current budgetary period to encourage faster spending in the cycle, so that the positive effects of the funding are more visible in the short as well as the long run, which address concerns for efficiency and misspent EU funds. Another reason why we are so passionate to protect EU funding from any cuts relates specifically to growing levels of Euroscepticism that persist in our country. The EU must recognize that Polish people are beginning to view it as an overly bureaucratic organization that is ignorant towards our interests. They believe that the EU weakens national sovereignty, and it does this by pushing an agenda that is dictated by wealthier member states most strongly via funding. Thus, it would be unwise, considering this politically hostile environment, to cut funding. The level of disruption caused by Brexit highlights the significance of ensuring unity between all member states, which is precisely what the cohesion funds are designed to do. Considering these tensions between our government and the rise of populism in our country and the EU, it is
30 seconds left, sorry.
It is important to mend our relationship through progressive negotiations that suit our mutual interests, and I believe that securing the CAP and cohesion funds is the best way to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sticking to your time. The next representative of, please, Croatia, the floor is yours.
Dear Member States, as a representative of Croatia, I would like to express my opinion about the multi-annual financial framework for the period of 2021-2027. Croatia's accession to the European Union in 2013 was the culmination of more than a decade of long effort to upgrade a country that was partly ravaged by the War of Independence. That is why Croatia, since its entry into the European Union, is among the countries that needs the most help from the EU, and especially since the health crisis and natural disasters that have affected Croatia in recent years. However, the long-term budget of the European Union for the period 2021-2027 amounts to an amount of 1,074 billion euro, which is not high in our opinion. As a representative of Croatia, we would like to increase the long-term budget. We want to increase this budget by 30 billion euros, and we think that a significant number of member states here will agree with us. We should like these 30 billion euros to be paid through the following headings: research and innovation, cohesion and values, and natural resources and environment. For Croatia, these 3 points are the ones that need to be helped more. The priority for Croatia are as follows. First of all, natural resources and environment remain one of the priority for Croatia. That is why we want to increase this budget by 10 billion euros, and we hope that our neighboring countries like Slovenia and Hungary will support us. Croatia will push for further simplification and reform the CAP in a more sustainable way. 70% of the Croatian population lives in the countryside, so we want to continue to develop these areas, and for that we need more resources. We would like Italy and Slovenia to be on our side because we export a good part of our agricultural production to these countries. Secondly, we want to intensify investment in the field of research and innovation because they are essential to unlock Croatia's growth potential. Croatia spent only 8.2% on research and innovation, which is very low compared to other countries such as the Netherlands, Finland, and Luxembourg, and we need more funds to be able to develop further these areas. In particular, we want to focus on the Horizon Europe program to finance essential research activity in the field of health, for example. That is why we want to increase the budget by 10 billion euros to be granted to these headings. We believe that a good majority of member countries will agree with our wish to increase this budget because there are also priorities for some countries such as France, Spain, and Slovenia, for example. Thirdly, regarding the aid in cohesion and values, we also want to increase the budget by 10 billion euro because we believe that it's essential to get closer to our neighboring country and create stronger ties. We want to strengthen the cohesion between the member states of the European Union and especially our neighboring countries, Slovenia and Hungary. We want to reduce the disparities between the regions of the European Union by promoting sustainable territory development. Finally, we wish to reduce the fund of the European Public Administration by 5 billion euros. The budget will be 69 billion euros, which for us seems more than enough. Indeed, even if the administration is essential in helping the Union to honor its priorities and implement its policy and programs in the common interest of Europe, it does not represent for us the absolute priorities in this period. We believe that we can have the support of a good number of member states, notably Austria, France, and Slovenia. As far as the other heading is concerned, we do not wish to make any particular changes. In summary, we want the total budget of the MFF to be around 1,100 billion euro. We know that all member states will not agree with us. That is why we want to discuss this with you today to find a consensus. To further fund this project and to be able to increase it, we want to tax non-recycled plastic more, and we also want increased tax on digital companies. Moreover, this budget can be increased with a larger contribution from the research country, the net contributors like Germany, France, or Austria, to help more countries with particular needs. To conclude quickly, for Croatia, it's essential to increase this budget in the long term, and we want to increase it while trying to find a consensus with the country that will not necessarily agree with us. We also want to review where the EU money goes and what the priorities really are. We see that the health crisis is still
30
present
seconds.
in the country of the European Union. It's necessary to limit the damage already caused, and it's only together that we can achieve this. Thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you very much. Now I think it's the turn of France. Please, the floor is yours.
Eminent EU representatives, I am here today on behalf of France to discuss the budget for the MFF for the period 2021-2027. France has been historically quite conservative regarding the EU budget and often on the same side of nations such as Germany, the Benelux bloc, and the Scandinavian countries. However, this time around we will have a different position regarding this topic due to the following reasons. We believe that even if many economies across Europe are rebounding and recovering from the crisis triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic, we are still not out of the woods, as the European Central Bank has reminded us earlier this year. Therefore, we urge the countries that are against a budget expansion to reconsider their ideas and not to do those same mistakes we had done after the 2008 financial crisis, when premature fiscal tightening undermined growth for years and then resulted in an economic bloodshed in 2015 during that crisis. Hence, we advocate for an expansion of 5% of the proposal of the Commission. And to finance that, we are proposing to increase the GNI based on resources to reach a point between the 1.3% suggested by the European Parliament. That is always a guide we should follow, since it's the will of the people speaking, and the 1.11 in the original MFF proposal. Regarding the allocation of funds to the CAP, France is the largest recipient of the Common Agricultural Policy funds, but there are significant disparities among the country's regions, between types of production and among farms. Therefore, we advocate for an expansion of the CAP in order to be able to have enough funds so we can make areas facing natural or other specific constraints competitive enough to be able to sustain themselves in this ultra-competitive market. We also need this liquidity to make investments in the agriculture, agri-food and forestry sectors, and we dramatically need to set up young farmers and make the agricultural industry an appetible industry again after years of economical drought in this sector, since wages and profit for entrepreneurs have been decreasing more and more in the past years. Therefore, we ask for a 5% expansion, and we feel like it would be only detrimental to decrease the budget. Also, because agriculture probably affects us all, regardless of our occupation, since it is at the base of our sustainment. While on application of conditionality to the Common Agricultural Policy, we believe that instead of a less bureaucratic process, we propose an implementation of a carbon tax and true cost tax to tackle the issues of farmers not being incentivized to go greener and more environmentally friendly. We could use this money from the taxes to partially finance the expansion of the CAP. Another issue is the allocation of funds to the cohesion and structural funds. And the Commission is proposing a 10% cut, but we would like to see even a harsher cut to 12, 15, since we believe that the way the cohesion funds are used nowadays are not beneficial to the people in the areas that they are targeting. Where regarding the structural funds, we would like to use the money subtracted to the cohesion fund and redirect it to the EMFF and the EFRD, which are the European Maritime and Fishery Fund and the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development. Regarding research and innovation, we would like to remind that even if our position is to cut 1215 from social fund, we would not want to interfere with the percentage that is destined to research and innovation, even if we are the funding country that receives the least of this fund. Regarding administration, France agrees with the current allocation of the funds proposed to the Commission because we believe that in order to keep this democratic system well-oiled and well-functioning, we need money to support the system. We believe that there is no reason to cut this fund since we are finding ourselves in a crucial moment in the EU era, the post-COVID-19 pandemic, and after the exiting of the UK from the EU. Therefore, we believe there is a huge amount of work that still needs to be done, and cutting funds and employees would only be detrimental to the EU. In conclusion, regarding the correction systems, in terms of the contribution to the rebates, France is the country in the EU that pays the most, more than 2 billion a year. Furthermore, the rebates total to 40 billion, and it's unthinkable for us to begin another 7 years with them. And France is not going to pay them indefinitely and accept a system where we keep focusing solely on monetary payback, where everybody thinks they've got to get their own rebate. However, the budget must not be confined only to figures, since we want a genuine strategy for investment in Europe, and we aim to a more cohesive and integrated EU. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You were very close to the 5 minutes. I think we had 1 second left. The next representative, please, Greece, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. The European Union is probably one of the most successful experiments in terms of international cooperation. Not only we succeed in creating a common market that brought us economic prosperity, but also we became a democratic stronghold and a promoter of human rights values. However, a series of crises since 2028 has put the Union in a very weak position, especially with Brexit. The economic stagnation, the refugee crisis, and the latest COVID-19 crisis has given Eurosceptic movements an increasing popularity, especially in Greece, for example. Today, except a few exceptions, every state member, I think, that has a political party, Eurosceptic political party, with real capabilities of seizing power. And we believe that this process of potential disintegration and crisis obviously can be solved, as well as long as we stay united. To fight these issues, we believe that it is imperative to increase the budget of those funds, aim to reduce disparities between regions and improve the standard of living among the European Union citizens by creating new jobs, developing interstate infrastructure, and boosting skills and combating basically poverty and social exclusion. Basically, these like structural and cohesion funds. And also we'll oppose and we'll reject any cut on the MMF. We must show those citizens that they are our #1 priority, not by speeches or words, but by public policies and results. Of course, other issues should be concerned, such as the digitalization process, developing new green energies, and combating climate change. However, these kind of policies have a huge impact on the productive structure and the social network, and more importantly, they are expensive and costly in short term. So especially for those countries with less prosperous economies that will not be able maybe to implement these kind of changes without serious social disruption or even class conflict. Don't misunderstand me, digitalization, modernization, or environmental policies are extremely important and are a priority for the Greek government, but their effects in the short term can be really serious and should be taken very carefully. I insist again that we are fully compromised with the environmental costs, but we propose to first achieve a certain level of economic growth and focusing especially on reducing the contrast between, not just between countries, but also inside the countries, between social classes. And once we surpass the most significant negative effects of the crisis, so just the high levels of unemployment, the low salaries, and precarious jobs, etc., then we truly can focus on these matters. So to sum up, the European Union is facing difficult times. There isn't one way to solve this crisis, but Greece believes that the standard of living and the well-being of our citizens should be the center of attention, as well as reducing the contrast between the most prosperous economies and the more needed ones. This strategy might not be the best by certain countries, but we hope that our point of view will be considered, not only because we are a proper member of the Union, but also because we think maybe other countries might share our point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the representative of Greece. Now is the turn for Denmark. Please, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon. Denmark's place in European construction is relatively more important than its geographic, demographic, and even economic weight. Denmark is not one of the founding members of the European community, and until now remains outside of some common policies of strategic importance, such as the Economic and Monetary Union. Denmark is not part of the hardcore of integration. However, and paradoxically, Danish positions are in the heart of the debate on the future of the European Union. This can be explained by several reasons, among others, its strategic role as the first Nordic country to join the Union. At the time of the accession of the Swedish neighbors and Finns, Denmark already had 25 years of experience as a member. It was the gateway for its northern neighbors to the European community. Its economic and social model that was an antecedent and a key point of reference for developing new common policies and improving existing ones. The reluctance of Denmark to accept integration, as most of the other members has caused problems and open discussions not only in Denmark but also in the Union. Denmark has a particular role in European construction. That is to say, larger, more populated countries with greater historical and economic experiences, such as the Netherlands or Greece, are not so notably at the center of the European debate. Denmark claims that Europe means not less but more Denmark. Therefore, this country is convinced of European integration. The main motivation to join the European Economic Community was economic. That is that the European Common Market was the main incentive to apply for membership. The country met all the conditions for its entry into the community to be beneficial. A dynamic agricultural sector, a flexible and competitive industry, and the most important markets within the Union. Denmark wants to play an essential role in the evolution and convergence of individual member states. The country has an image of the Union as a platform that enables member states to exchange experiences in organizing their economy and society. Being a member of the European Union brings great benefits to Denmark, although it's not surprising that it excludes itself from two sectors of community competence, the Economic and Monetary Union and the free movement of people. The three sectors that Denmark decided to stay on the sidelines, Monetary Union, free movement of people, and defense, Denmark plays a very active role. You cannot, however, fully participate in discussions and make decisions that directly affect Denmark. Talking about the CAP, a progressive common agricultural policy is needed. The CAP should focus on competitiveness, growth, and sustainability of the agricultural sector, as well as income from exports and delivery of high-quality agricultural products with a high level of food safety. It's important that CAP delivers not only on traditional areas such as investments, organic production, nature conservation, and biodiversity, but also on the agenda of climate adaptation and mitigation. Denmark won a new road towards a competitive, sustainable, intensive agricultural production. And in order to ensure continuity, economic sustainability of the agricultural sector, and the general objectives of the CAP mentioned above, it's important to maintain the correct CAP budget. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's turn for Luxembourg. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon to all the fellow delegates. It's very nice to see everybody here. Luxembourg has always been vocal of the importance of integration as one of the main privileges and roads to prosperity within the EU. And we feel the MFF is one of the main ways of reflecting the need and focus for integration between all the states. The EU budget amounts to 1,074.3 billion for the 2021 to 2027 period. While this figure amounts to a very large sum, we delegate our budget towards a large number of expensive and essential projects. Luxembourg would like to remind each and every member here that each issue and fund spoken about today are extremely important to the EU, but certain changes must be made to optimise this budget and to further optimise the MFF in the future and EU integration. And we want to minimise the social and economic impact of any cuts or any increases, and that is of the utmost priority. Luxembourg has three main objectives we believe are unanimously beneficial to the EU. Increased digitisation, which is bringing our member states closer together and allowing industry growth for small to medium enterprises, allowing for a better and more fair market competition. Secondly, sustainable and healthy growth in the industrial sectors with minimised barriers to entry. And third, a more solid commitment from the EU to the environmental action. Luxembourg believes digitisation, increased mobility and healthy economic growth can be achieved mostly through the structural and cohesion funds, providing services in transport, digital and labour mobility within the EU. We believe that the Research and Innovation Fund is essential to long-term economic growth, as well as for the health of the citizens that live within the EU, especially considering the COVID crisis that we were through last year and are continuing to go through this year. Luxembourg believes the fund, with increasing funding towards environmentally damaging areas, must be considered the most. This fund is also one of the most segregating funds of the wealthy and lower class with environmental disregard, and this is the Common Agricultural Policy. Because of this, we believe a cut and redistribution of the fund is essential to increasing fairness and taking real action towards protecting our planet. Redistribution of funds to the SMEs, the small to medium enterprises, needs to be carefully examined to reduce the clear mismanagement and corruption. The administration fund, we believe, directly pays for the necessary staff to optimise the redistribution and to make sure that all corruption is minimised to as much as is possible. And it was very important that we have an administration fund so that we can focus on the lower 50% of farmers, which are receiving proportionally less and less of the CAP fund every MMF. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, the representative of Belgium, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you for your invitation to speak at this negotiation, and thank you to all the other nations for being here during these very important discussions. So there has definitely been a fundamental shift in the last year that has changed our perspectives, our priorities, and the status quo. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed Europe and the rest of the world significantly, and all of our nations are going through an extremely difficult time. It is therefore important now, more than ever, that we come together and agree on the 2021-27 multi-annual financial framework of the European Union. I would like to start by expressing that we, Belgium, are in agreement with the new budget proposed by the European Commission. We believe that the proposed budget does more with the allocated funds, making European spending more efficient and effective, something that is vital in the current climate. The proposed budget works in harmony with what we believe are the most important priorities today. In Belgium, we are focused on environmental policies, digitalization, modernization, and unity of the EU. Hence, we greatly appreciate the direction that this MFF is heading in, with the continued and boosted support for greater environmentally friendly practices within all elements of the budget. Moreover, the schemes in place to promote modernization of the whole of Europe is something that we believe is crucial in order for the whole of Europe to excel and overcome any obstacles that may and will be placed before us. Europe has experienced lots of difficulty in the last decade. Brexit, migration, and continued Euroscepticism, alongside a global pandemic, has not been an easy challenge to overcome. Yet, this MFF budget makes us hopeful for the future of Europe, Money is being directed towards new and innovative projects that are working to improve the whole of Europe and help all member states recover from the turbulent times that we have had. This brings me on to the last aspect that I would like to talk about. This is the point of European unity. Each person in each member state has been affected by this pandemic in one way or another. This makes this negotiation of the MFF budget one of the most important negotiations we shall ever undertake. Every single cent of this budget is vital to help each nation to get back on their feet. Therefore, I appeal to all of you to keep in mind what is best for the whole of Europe. If we think about our friends in the south who struggle with issues of migration, and think about our friends in the north that are struggling with climate change, it is only when we refuse to understand the point of view of our fellow members that things begin to fall apart. Unity is the only way to keep Europe strong. Hence, I urge all nations within this negotiation to remember this, and through these discussions, help to come to an agreement that helps continue to build an ever closer union. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, all of you, all the member states have presented their main ideas and their main proposal. You've been discussing certain issues on previous weeks, so you already know more or less the rest of the member states already know what your positions are. So what we're going to do now, it's bringing the negotiation to an end in order to reach an agreement, okay? Before we get started and we start working on the ceiling, I will propose a 5-minute break in order to, clear up our minds and prepare for the negotiations. But please be punctual because we are on a very tight schedule and there's many things that we need to discuss and we will be kicked out of this room at 7 p.m. So everything needs to be very precise, okay? Thank you very much, and I see you, what time? Let's see, at 16:45, okay? Thank you. Okay, if member states, please take your seats. We need to proceed with the negotiation. Please, the representative of the Netherlands, take your seat. Well then, since we've already presented our positions, it is time now to decide on the first block of the negotiations, which is the ceiling of the overall budget, and introduction or not, or what type of new resources we can agree on introducing. Let me remind you that this is a 6-year budget, this is a multi-annual financial framework, so it means that there is the time variable is an important issue here also. Okay, so the Commission has presented a 1.1 trillion budget, which is a considerable increase regarding the previous multi-annual financial framework. And as the Commission, we would like to know if all the member states agree on the proposed overall ceiling. If anybody wants to present their position, they're welcome to do so now. I was about to say, well, cool, that was fast. We agree on the overall topic, no introduction on the resources, but I see that Austria wants to present their position. Please go ahead.
Yes, as the representative of Austria, I disagree with the proposition of the Commission, as I already stated, because our country think it is too high. The budget for the previous MFF was about 90, like 100 less than that. And so we think it is too much, and we would like to propose a budget of 1,050 billion instead. And we also think that with the COVID crisis, we understand that some countries need more help, and we are here to find solutions to help them. But we think that if we find some solution to fight against mismanagement and corruption, we could find an agreement and allocate with an efficient way the money.
Okay, I think I have few words. I will give the floor in this order. First it will be France, then it will be Ireland, and finally it will be Croatia, okay?
We, as representative of France, we think that like the argument about saying that the MFF for 2014-2020 was lower than this one does not make much sense, because it was like 2014 figures and updated to 2018 figures. A cut proposed like the Austrian one would be even a lower budget than it was in 2014. And we found ourselves in a time of crisis, and like economic 101 says that when in time of crisis you don't cut, but you put more money. So, and also we find ourselves with the highest level of inflation in the last 13 years, with 3.4%. And inflation is good for borrowers and bad for lenders. Therefore, we must try to take advantage of this moment, because it will mean an increase in private investment, and it could only be achieved through fiscal stimulus and not by cutting the proposal of the MFF.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's Ireland's turn now. Please, floor is yours.
As a representative of Ireland, I would propose a similar solution as Austria did. We do not agree with raising the budget. However, we would strongly recommend to keep the budget the same as it is. Our most important issue that we have is that we would also like to have the discussion going into this direction. There is a lot of mismanagement and corruption these days in our funding, and it is more importantly for us to increase transparency and control mechanisms in order to make those funds more efficient. There is a lot of money already being allocated, but not used as efficient as it could be with more transparency and control mechanisms. This is a really important point for us, and I think also a good argument in order to keep the budget the same.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, the representative of Croatia.
We are not agree with us, Austria and Ireland, because we think that the budget is not enough. There are still problems that have not been solved and that require more resources. And especially when we see that the health crisis is resuming, we can not afford to reduce the budgets. It would be a real disaster to recover from this crisis. So we hope to have the other member countries will support us, like Hungary, Slovenia, and some other country who also needs this help. So we actually want to increase the budgets a little bit, but we hope that we can find a consensus. Like we don't want to increase the budget too much, so we want to make a proposal, and we want to increase the budget to 1,100 billion euro. So maybe the Hungary and Slovenia will be agree with that.
Sorry, if I'm not understood correctly, you want to make it 100 billion more, so it's 1.2 or 1.2. Okay, 100 billion extra. I see that Slovenia, because they've been interpelled, wants to speak, and then Italy. Let me write down. Slovenia, Italy, and then it would be Sweden, Estonia, Spain, and France. Yes? Okay, please, Slovenia, go ahead.
So we are close to this Croatia position, but we wanted to talk a little bit about what we refuse to accept in this next multi-annual financial framework. We will refuse it if it is a requirement to link the rule of law into this new budget, unless there is maybe, and that we understand that not everyone here is in the same position as us, but at least we think that we need a 5% increase on this Commission proposal budget. We believe that most of these European Union members, especially Austria, Denmark, Netherlands, are trying to impose, or even Germany, are trying to impose politically motivated criteria that we think that we cannot call the rule of law. But we think that if there is at least a 5% increase in this multi-annual financial framework, at least we have better conditions, because for us the main goal is to have a cohesion. This is our first, let's say, our first goal is to have a cohesion policy, and this is our proposal.
Okay, Italy. I think Austria and Hungary and the Czech Republic want to talk, but let me. Austria, Hungary, Czech Republic, and Portugal and Finland. Let me remind you that this is a negotiation, so I want you to bring up some ideas and work towards an agreement, okay? Italy, sorry, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. As a representative of Italy, I agree with increase the budget, but not at all. Like, I agree with your proposition of increasing like 1.2, because with as one of the most affected countries with the COVID crisis and all that stuff, we are going to receive money from the Next Generation Fund and other funds that are from making like more easier to for the first years of 2021 and all that stuff, make an agreement to make more funds, but we think that the other years we need more like stability to make a budget that could be returned. So our strategy on that term is to increase, but not like so much.
Okay, it is clear. It's the turn of Sweden. Please, the floor is yours.
Thanks. In the first place, we wanted to reduce it, well, to reduce the budget, the MFF budget, to 15%. But maybe if we apply conditionally to all our member states, and we take care that transparency is applied, so we stop the mismanagement and corruption, we agree on leaving the budget as it is. But obviously we don't want to increase the amount, but we can leave it as it is if we apply conditionally.
Understood. The next to speak would be the representative of Estonia, please.
I want to respond to France to say that I'm agree to increase the budget, and we propose a common tax, a CO2 tax border, to increase this budget and find all our new goals, and to guarantees to countries that are afraid to have mismanagement on those new resources. I propose before the direct payment between EU institution and national beneficiaries, the different individuals, to guarantee any mismanagement during the transfer, and to guarantee the transparency of the bank transfers.
Okay. I think, is it the turn of Spain now? Please, representative of Spain, the floor is yours.
Yes, as the representative of Spain, I agree with France and Croatia and Estonia and disagree with Austria. The whole point of being in a crisis is not to cut, but to increase. I, however, do understand the worry about some countries about mismanagement and corruption. That's why it is also important to maybe spend some money to counter these issues, and as Estonia said, maybe discussed on some conditionality about it.
Okay, I think the statement is quite clear. After Finland, we will have Netherlands, Slovakia, and Romania.
Similarly to Sweden. So
No, it's turn of France. I'm just taking the turns. Don't worry. Now it's turn for France. Then would be Austria. And then we will have Hungary, Czech Republic, Portugal, Finland, Netherlands, Slovakia, and Romania. Let me remind you that we have now at this moment around 10 to 12 minutes to reach an agreement. So I know that your statements are very important, but make them fruitful, please. Thank you.
Yeah, as the second time I take word, I'm here to make a proposal to countries like Austria and Sweden and the countries that want to also increase. I was proposing a 5% increase in the budget, but I'm willing to to give it up and leave the budget as it is, but only if we up the own resources GNI based, because the Commission is proposing a 1.11%, which would be a step back after Brexit, because we have to make up for the money that the UK were putting in the EU that we don't have anymore, and in relative it would be a 1.16%. So I'm asking for Austria and Sweden to come to a compromise for keep the budget as it is, but go for a 1.16 GNI own contribution, because otherwise we would come short in the making of the MFF.
Okay, let me remind you that the representative of Estonia and I don't remember who else introduced some elements about the new resources for those to take into consideration. Austria, please. Go.
Yes, I also, I heard what you said, and I think we could find an agreement because we should use the integrative way of negotiating and not only the conventional, yeah, I don't know how we say that, the positional way of negotiating. But I also have to remind the member states that Austria has been a net contributor for many years because we've contributed for more than 3 million in 2018, whereas EU has spent for us only 1.9 billion. So just for remind the countries. But I think that we could find an agreement. I may agree with your proposition, but I think that 1.16 is a bit too high because we plan with the Frugals to stop at 1% because we were thinking that the proposition of the Commission was too high. But I may agree with you because we have to find a solution. So I was thinking maybe 1.14.
Okay, this is going to be a tough one. If we keep going by 0.02, it decreases every time, but it's okay. I think it's a way to get there. Please, the representative of Hungary, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a little remember that we're in a negotiation, and the major point of all this is to reach to an agreement. So, as my fellow lovely Croatians were saying before, they propose a new MFF where they were saying to increase the budget. I want to add in addition, hundreds of thousands of people in the European Union are directly getting benefit from this European funding. Many receive grants of advantage, European Union guarantee loans to carry out investments, research, educational projects. So I really want to ask, is it really profitable to reduce this budget? Polonia, Croatia, Greece, Czech Republic, Spain, us, Hungary. We're really in favor to increase. I'm just appealing to use our common sense and make this the shortest possible, and that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay, clear. The Czech Republic, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Hungary, for stressing this point. I just wanted to underline it. It's also important for us as Czech Republic that the budget will not be cut. In response to Ireland, Estonia, and Spain, and other countries that were concerned about mismanagement, we acknowledge that, but we also want to make clear that only 3.1% of EU spending is, according to the European Court of Auditors, is mismanaged. So it's not. It's important to tackle that, but it's not possible to get a lot of money from that, not enough, to balance out the effects of Brexit. So we also propose, we agree with France that the member state contributions should be raised. And we also propose, although that will probably unpopular with Ireland and Estonia and or Netherlands, that there will be a European tax implemented on big tech companies. And also we want to implement financial transaction tax to finance the budget. And the last point, we are not really in favor of conditionality, but we would accept conditionality if that means that the budget can be increased.
Okay, I think the point is actually clear. Portugal, it's your turn, and then it will be Finland, and then it will be the Netherlands, Slovakia, and Romania, and I think Poland is and Ireland are back there.
First, I wanted to respond to Slovenia about, he talked about increasing the budget 5%. I agree with that. And because the budget has been increasing over the years and things have been better in the European Union, but I do not agree with your opinion of the rule of law. You said your main goal was cohesion, but how could we be a cohesion institution if some of the countries doesn't want to follow the rule of law, which is one of the fundamental values of the Union. Also, I wanted about the increase of 5% of the budget. I know, for example, countries, net contributors like Austria or the Netherlands, they don't want, but maybe we can implement own resources like CO2 tax in order to have more money. So you don't get so affected about these increases.
Okay, Finland, the floor is yours.
So I do think that 1.2 that of the Croatian proposal, it's increasingly high. Finland recently had a GDP contraction of 2.9 of its economy in 2020 due to COVID, but we do agree to go down to the EU proposal and to make up the funding that is needed since the departure of the UK. As own resources, we were thinking of considering the plastic tax, which has been widely accepted by a lot of countries here. And also, we would like to say that if we do go down to the European proposal, we wish that conditionality is very important to us. So I think that would be one of those non-negotiable points for us. So if there is to be a reduction, an increase of the budget, then me, and I think Austria would back me on this, is that conditionality has to be applied.
Okay, I think the turn for the Netherlands. Let me remind me the member states that the term conditionality can be applied to the whole budget, or we can also maybe rephrase it in different aspects in order for the sake of an agreement. Just to keep that in mind. I mean, I understand your position, and I think that the European Union needs to reinforce its values, but at the same time, we are concerned about reaching an agreement today. The Netherlands, please, the floor is yours.
Well, I feel like at this point of the conversation, asking for a decrease is surrealistic because we actually have to speak of something about that's actually able to end up happening. But I don't think we should actually increase anyhow the whole budget. I feel like any type of increase in this point in 2021, where we have a big crisis, is not realistic. So I would stand by my partner in Austria to actually decrease the budget to 5%. But in order to flexibilize this meeting, I think we can actually live with just holding the budget like this. But I think like increasing it's surrealistic, because what are you gonna do? Just like get up some taxes in your citizens after a big crisis? And we're talking about increasing a budget when actually we lost a net contributor in UK. So that means that all the other net contributors are gonna spend even more money in the midst of a crisis. And I don't think that's actually realistic, because we suffered the crisis too, and I don't think we deserve to spend more money, even though they will go to net recipients. So I think as the Netherlands, we actually can live by and just staying the budget like this. Thank you.
Okay, the point is clear. Slovakia, it's your turn.
So whilst ideally we would like to see the budget raised, we do see Netherlands' arguments about how it could be kept the same. Where we disagree with other countries on heavily is reducing it. And also, many countries have suggested, I believe Ireland and Sweden suggested, keeping the budget the same but applying conditionality. The issue we have with this is that conditionality can mean many things. One aspect could be, let's say, environmental conditionality. So farms need to have X number of equipment. The problem with that is we've gone through massive economic growth in the last 20 years, but we're still developing compared to other countries. This may incur extra costs on our farmers. Now, if we can be guaranteed that conditionality does not slow down or hinder the process of receiving EU subsidies, and it can be fully costed for, such as maybe through a digital service tax or plastic tax, we are willing to support it. But we have to remember that conditionality isn't a no-cost measure.
Okay, that's a very interesting approach. Romania, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, I agree with what just Slovakia has said about conditionality. We actually wanted to increase the budget, but we are also, we could agree on maintaining the same if we really think about those limits on the conditionality. And also, if we are actually, if we think about like maintaining the same budget, I would really encourage to rethink the allocation of this money and really thinking that and really thinking about the CAP and the cohesion funds, because we are not going to just we are not going to agree on maintaining we are not going to agree into maintaining the Commission proposals if we do not think about the cohesion and the agricultural CAP. That I think sorry.
Okay, I think it's Poland's turn.
Yes, I would like to stress that we are strongly against any conditionality to EU funding. We believe it's deeply unfair and it's been used as an ideological weapon against Eastern European countries specifically. As you can see, I'm echoing the statements of Romania and Slovakia who are against conditionality. And in a time like this when we really deserve some sort of recovery package, we're still waiting approval for our recovery package, which was supposed to be approved in July. And I think that applying conditionality to funding will just make the situation a lot more complex at a time when countries need access to these funds due to the crisis. So I believe that we should scrap conditionality. I'm willing to accept no increases to the budget, even though I do want an increase to the budget. But yes, I would just like to stress that the conditionality is extremely unfair and it should be scrapped.
Okay, next is Ireland. I want to remind the member states that we're closing the ceiling of the MFF, and there's a whole package next to it, which is called Next Generation European Union Funds. So I want also to keep, I want you to keep that in mind. Some of you have pointed out of raising the contribution from the member states a little bit higher in order to make the proposal higher. I want to remind you that at the beginning of the whole meeting, the Commission already presented a proposal saying that there's a will to change in terms of how to get our resources or where to get our money from. Okay, so the Commission appreciates all your points, but the idea is to push forward a new model of organizing the European Union. With that said, let's hear what the Irish representative has to say, and then the Czech Republic, and I don't know if there's other words taken, Germany and France.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to reply to what Poland said, but also to what Slovakia said. I think Ireland started the conversation about conditionality kind of when we said earlier that we should, instead of increasing the budget, we should try to handle mismanagement and corruption in order to raise more money that can efficiently be used and effectively be used in the projects. So when we came up with this, we were not thinking about conditionality based on sustainability or any other measures, because we do also think that this can slow down the process of distributing money and for the projects. So what we're saying is that we would like to make funds more efficient in order to have more money out of it. And yeah, if the representative of Spain also said earlier that he would consider conditionality in terms of effectively using the money and control mechanisms. And if also the representative of France agrees to not increase the budget too much, if the resources are GNI based, we would also agree to this. Therefore, I would like to kind of switch this conversation back to conditionality in terms of what I just said. And yeah, I would also like to remind you that the status quo is status quo of the budget is 1.1 billion now. And I think some countries have mentioned that they would agree to stick to this, and I would call upon them, especially on Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, to support this again.
The Czech Republic, please.
Yes, one quick response to the concerns of Netherlands that new tax would hurt the citizens. When we speak about tax like financial transaction tax or tax on tech companies, that would only hurt the most affluent citizen, or hurt slightly, tax the most affluent citizens and not the main population. So I think this shouldn't be a concern, and there's a lot of money that we can get. And also regarding the Next Generation Fund, we really understand the concerns, for example, of our neighboring state Poland, that the conditionality can be a problem. So we propose to not apply conditionality to funds like the Cohesion Fund that are very important, that they continue. But to, for example, the Next Generation Fund, which is a new fund. So yeah, that's our proposal.
Regarding one element that the representative of the Czech Republic has pointed out, I keep insisting that this is a 6-year budget. It's not a static budget. It's not something that stays or starts from the very beginning and stays like this today and finishes like this in 2027. Just keep that in mind. Germany, please.
Okay, so we have heard all your point of views, and we think that we should not forget the context we are in, which we faced a COVID crisis, and it has fragilized our economies. So Germany has always an interest in expanding the budget and provide essential services and finance research and development and other sectors. But we understand why some countries want to decrease the budget, so we think we should better manage it and maintain the budget as it is.
Okay, thank you very much. And then before we finish, please, Franz, this will be the last word, so make it short, please.
Yeah, I have a proposal, so we can close the point one maybe. I would propose to increase the budget of 30 billion, but apply conditionality on all the budget, since it's crucial that this money is well spent, and to agree with Austria for the own resources to finance it, we up the GNI only to 1.14, and apply a plastic tax like Finland and Estonia have suggested to eventually finance the other parts of the MFF.
Well, no, it's not. No, there's no more time for public presentations. What I would ask you, without leaving the room, is to stand up, make a informal arrangement, and deal with the negotiations informally. And when you finish, you have like 2 minutes. When you finish, some of you needs to provide me with your final proposition. Okay, so please go ahead, 2 minutes to make a decision. Thank you. Member states, I need an answer in 10 seconds. Please, if some spokesperson of the member states provides me with the final decision, please. France?
Yeah, we all agreed on the proposal of France, which is a budget increase of 30 billion, which is financed with an increase of GNI contribution from 1.11 to 1.14 and a plastic tax. But we'll apply conditionality throughout the whole budget, but environmental conditionality, not like profit conditionality or anything like that, through all the different aspects of the budget. Thank you.
So, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to have a budget of 1.16 trillion. 1.1. It's 1.13, the proposal of the Commission.
Oh yeah, 1.6.
And
yeah,
then it's going to be 1.16 or 16, almost 17. Then conditionality applied to all the elements of the budget. Environmental conditionality.
Environmental conditionality, yes.
And in terms of taxes, you said plastic tax?
Yes, plastic tax and own resource, GNI based from 1.11, which was the proposal, to 1.14 to finance this 30 billion.
1.14% of GNI, and a plastic tax applied from 2021, or we start some other time? Right away. Okay. I understood. Now it's time for administration. Let me remind you that you've spent over 30 minutes discussing this element. I'm sure it's going to be easy to discuss the CAP when we come to conditionality, because if it applies to the whole elements of the budget, this will be clear. So next block is about the administration costs of the union. Let me remind you that the Commission has made a proposal of 74.6 billion. And if everybody is happy with this, or there's some different approaches to the administration funds, please, this is the time to present them. Yes, Croatia, please, go ahead. And then Portugal, and Denmark. And the Netherlands, sorry. Croatia, Portugal, Denmark, and the Netherlands, then I'll take a few more words.
The representative of Croatia, we would like to reduce a little bit the fund for the European Public Administration to 5 billion euros. The budget will be 69 billion, and we think that is more than enough, because the administration, even if it's fundamental, it's not the priorities. So we believe that we can have support of a good member state, because we have to put the priorities of other headings and not the administration.
Okay, understood. Portugal?
I would like to support the idea of reducing the budget, because it's not the main concern of the European Union, and this budget to transport this budget to the cohesion fund.
Okay, Denmark, and then after the Netherlands, which is Denmark and the Netherlands, I'll take Ireland, Austria, and Luxembourg.
Denmark wants to keep the budget for the European administration, or even lower it. That is less money for the administration, but better used to achieve higher levels of efficiency while reducing costs at the same time. So, in conclusion, an administrative budget maintained at its current level will allow the EU to maintain a strong, attractive civil service across the EU and capable of meeting its future priorities and challenges.
Okay, Netherlands?
Well, the Netherlands would like to keep like this the budget, because I feel like the administration is actually like the center of the whole European Union, and in order to actually exteriorize it, so the actual politics that are created in Brussels actually go out in a better way and more efficient, we need to have a really exceptional bureaucratic system in order to organize everything and make everything functional. So I think this 5% increase from the last, not increase, stay like this, sorry. I think it's necessary for the actual efficiency that we talk about so much during these conversations. Thank you.
Okay, Ireland, it's your turn.
Ireland would like to support a cut in the European public administration of a maximum 5% though. And just as in the earlier issue, we raised the urgency for an increase in efficiency and transparency and control mechanisms, also in terms of administration. Furthermore, we would also like to raise the discussion about the maintenance or not maintenance of the correction systems. We do really strongly think that the correction systems, the rebates, should be abolished, because they're not based on any objective economic criteria.
I understand your point, representative of the Republic of Ireland, but correction system will be discussed in the following blocks. So I will not allow a discussion on this at this moment, until we finalize a conclusion on the administration. I know it's important for your point, and I know that you want to keep people aware of your position, but we will not enter into a discussion on the correction systems, okay? I think it's Austria's time, then will be Luxembourg, Sweden, Finland, and I think we have Italy, Estonia, and Belgium, right? Did you? Yeah.
Okay, so I heard your points, and our country was in favor of decreasing the budget because I think that for everybody here, the priority is really to get out from the crisis. As I said earlier, my country is actually in lockdown, like the people who didn't have a vaccine are locked down. So I think this is really the priority. But in the same time, I remember Finland, we were talking about that. I think the digital transition could help the European Union to be more efficient and competitive. So I think I could agree of reducing a bit the budget, but like allocate a bit of the funds dedicated to innovation, research and development, to the digital transition, because I think in the long run it would help us. This plan is for 6 years, so I think the objective is really to focus about the crisis. But after that, we should not forget that we want to be competitive, right? So the digital transition is very important for our countries, and so maybe like begin to work with that, with the innovation funds. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Luxembourg, the floor is yours.
Luxembourg has heard your points and understands that there is quite a move for a reduction in the room. We would want to point out that it was only 7% of the budget for the 2021 to 2027 MFF, and in proportion now is even less. And in proportion to 2014 to 2020s, it is the same as it was. It hasn't increased at all. An independent study done by an auditing firm saw that only 0.2% of the EU budget that is spent on administration services were done in a mismanagement / corrupt way, which means that we would be talking about, decreasing wages or getting rid of some staff, and I think that will host a lot of problems when we're talking about increased efficiency and trying to stop any leaks in the budget that we are making at the moment. We think that it's essential that we have the Court of Auditors and all of the Court of Justice that be paid their fair way and not decrease any of the staff at this moment. So we believe that it is important that it stays stagnant and isn't reduced at the moment, because we'd just be reducing efficiency, I believe.
Okay, Sweden, it's your turn.
We think that the administration is a key for the MFF and all the EU programs, and we think we need professionals to take care of how the money is invested and how it is used for avoiding mismanagement or corruption. So, as a representative of Sweden, we are neutral in this situation, whether the budget decreases or increases. What we want is efficiency. So all the money that the budget, all the money of the budget produces results on the European member states, and we will agree on what we think is the best for everyone.
Okay, very interesting approach. Finland, it's your turn.
So I understand Luxembourg and Sweden's view. So my proposal is to maintain the budget so that we can have this digital transition. And once digitalization has been achieved, we can then start decreasing the budget as it will now be a more efficient administration. And that could also, be a solution to all the corruption issues that you were talking about.
Okay, I think it's the turn for Italy now.
Our country has not a strong position of this issue because it's not one of our preferences, but we think that it's a key issue in MFF negotiation, and we agree with the proposal that Finland just said, because we think that with the increase that we all proposed in the first term, we can have the not increase and not decrease this budget. Thank you.
Okay, the representative of Estonia, and then it will be Belgium and Spain.
As a representative of Estonia, I would like to say I agree with the proposal of the Commission, because I think it's fair, because to administrate and control the conditionalities that we just voted, we need an efficient administration with a proportional budget. And as the most digitalized administration in the world, I would like to advocate for a global plan with a consequent budget for global digitalization of the EU administration. Indeed, 99% of all public services are available every time, every day, and I think it's the way that the EU should go to be more competitive and more efficient.
Yes, Belgium.
Yeah, I would agree that we shouldn't have to cut the funds, I think, for the administration. I think if we look at all the new projects that the EU is implementing in this MFF budget, for example, even just looking at Next Generation EU, which takes up 50% of the total funding of the budget, obviously that's going to require some administrative expertise and a lot more administration in general. The kind of new layout of the EU in terms of like the structural funds and things like that, all of these things in the next 6 years are going to require some adjusting to. Therefore, I think this administration budget of is vital, and I don't think it should be decreased. If anything, it could be decreased by 2 billion, but not by 5 billion that was presented earlier.
Okay, Spain the floor is yours, and then Slovenia and Germany.
So it is true, in my opinion, that the administration fund is important for efficiency, and efficiency is very important, especially for this decade. But in my opinion, it's not the top priority, so I would keep it the same. And also, I agree with the proposal of Finland of supporting the digital transition. And I also agree with Belgium. I don't think we should reduce it 5 billion, I think 2 or maybe 1 billion.
Okay, Slovenia, if you take the floor, please.
So we think similarly to Spain. We think this is not our first priority, but at the same time, as I said in my first intervention, I think, and this is something that it's not comfortable to talk about, but again, I say the theme about the rule of law. I think that, yes, of course, we do agree with efficiency in terms of judicial system, for example. And so we just want to remember that only an independent judicial body can decide what the rule of law is, but not a political majority. And anyway, so I think in terms of money, yes, we do agree. We don't want to increase it, we don't want to reduce it, but I think that this is an important framework that must be considered.
Appreciate your point, but we need to close an agreement. So thank you for your consideration. Germany, your turn.
So we also agree with Spain that it is essential to guarantee the good functioning of the institutions, their capacity to adapt and react to problems, to be more flexible and provide better solutions and services with the creation of greater policies. But as Croatia and Portugal have said, and other countries too, it may not be the principal issue at the moment, so it's better to maintain the budget as it is.
Austria, and then Portugal.
Yes, it's just to support what Finland has proposed, and I think that all the member states should seem to agree with that. Keeping the same budget to allow a bit transition, and I think reducing the budget could also be a problem because this is going to be a new president of the Commission for the European Union. France is going to be the next president, so maybe to allow a swift transition and to France to be good with that. It could, keeping the same budget could be a good idea and reasonable rather than cutting it. So I think if everyone agrees with Finland, I don't know.
Okay, Portugal. I will, wait, before you say something, I would like to remind the member states that we are discussing 7% of or 27% of the whole budget, and we are talking here about 1 to up to 5 million up or down in the proposed, from the proposal, just to give you the dimension of the discussion that we are having.
I also want to say that maybe we could decrease it 2 billion, and then in the middle of the financial framework, in the multi-annual financial framework, in 3 years, maybe we could look it up again and maybe decrease it even more or stay the same. It depends, they said that the thing that Finland said, that digitalization, and maybe in 3 years, maybe we should increase it, or maybe we're not, and we're okay with 2 billion less.
Okay, Slovakia, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Czech Republic.
Slovakia disagrees with that proposal. Whilst we support the current proposal for the administration costs or budget, if we have a temporary increase in the budget, as we all know, quite often in these organisations, these changes aren't temporary. And if the budget seems to be working well enough, as Luxembourg pointed out, I don't see a reason why we need to change it.
Luxembourg.
Luxembourg would like to agree with the scope of this issue. It is quite a small amount. It is only 1 to 2 billion, but when we're talking about this budget where almost every cent is used, we don't think the 2 billion is just going to be able to be taken out. It will come at the cost of efficiency. So we do understand that administration expenses is not a high priority for the EU, but it's something that just has to be paid regardless of how important it is deemed in relation to other issues that we've spoken about today. It is something that is just necessary always, and we think that any reduction, 1 to 2 billion, is really just going to cut into very important efficiency issues within the administration expenses.
It's the turn of Belgium and then Czech Republic.
I would agree with Luxembourg on that issue, and I think the point about her kind of reviewing it halfway through the MFF, for example, after 3 years, because of how, looking at the scope of this issue on the larger scale would kind of just cause a lot more disruption, and I think we can come to a decision here on what the budget should be over the next 6 years, so I would reject that proposal, but agree with Luxembourg that it is true that all this administration goes directly into the people that are working very hard to make the EU a functional mechanism. So I think we should keep that in mind and stick to the budget that has been proposed by the Commission.
Thank you very much. Czech Republic, floor is yours.
Yes, the Czech Republic also agrees to maintain the budget. I think there's quite a consensus here, and I just want to remind the member states that were advocating for a reduction of administration, that if we keep the budget and we use it to digitalize processes, then in the long term, in the future, there will probably be savings in the administrations. So this is also a point to keep the budget as it is.
So at this point, I see that some of the member states are not, I wouldn't say happy, but would accept the proposal of the Commission. Those who proposed a small reduction, I insist, the biggest reduction that I've heard is 5 million. Okay, I don't know how 5 billion. I don't know how will be affecting the administration. But if those countries that propose the reduction are happy with keeping with the proposed overall budget for the administration, we could close the discussion here. Croatia, if you want to say something, or even Portugal, Denmark, you were the first ones who proposed the reduction.
No, we agree to stay with the Commission proposal and to keep the budget like that.
Portugal?
Yeah, we also agree to keep the budget like that, but I think that the other state members have to take into account that we are giving them this heading.
So everybody's aware of the effort that Portugal and Croatia are making. No, it is important to be noticed. So we can agree with the proposal of the Commission on the 74.6 billion on the administration funds. Yes? Very happy to hear. Thank you very much. Okay, now, because we were quite quick, took us 20 minutes to discuss the administration funds. It is the turn of one of the most important elements of this budget. This is the cohesion funds. As you know, and we've made public and we've expressed our position clearly, the Commission has decided to cut the funding for the cohesion funds 10% in regard or compared to the previous MFF. As I said, the idea behind this is trying to renew the way the money is distributed in the European Union. The Commission does not cut funds in order to screw member states up. Keep that in mind, but please make sure that you and remember that we have the next generation European Union funds on the side. So what I want you to, I would like you to agree to our proposal, but I'm sure that it's not going to be happening that quick. But I want you to keep in mind that we need to discuss the overall cut, if we're going to go to that 10% cut, or we do a smaller cut or a bigger cut. Okay, that's the first sort of agreement that I would like to reach. And then what are your positions on these two special sections of the cohesion and structural funds that are the research and innovation funds and Connecting Europe funds? Okay, so is there anybody that agrees with the 10% cut of the cohesion funds? Yes, Belgium?
Yeah, so Belgium agrees with the proposed cut by the Commission. We think that the cohesion fund isn't the most efficient policy that the EU has ever produced, and I think a decrease can actually lead to these funds being used in a more efficient way and therefore more effectively. However, I do understand that many of our southern and Balkan states will not agree with this cut, and therefore I am open to hearing other proposals, perhaps a reduction in the 10% cut, but I would firmly stand against an increase in the cohesion policy.
Okay, France raised their hands, also Slovenia, Austria, and Poland.
We propose a 12% cut because we feel like the cohesion fund is not as effective as the EU claim it to be, because we see that like the overall inequality has been decreasing among EU countries, but among regions themselves, the benefit from the cohesion fund is actually been increasing. A study in 2017 shows how Bulgaria and Lithuania, which are two countries that are receiving the cohesion fund, in the last 5 years have been a Gini coefficient who has increasing and increasing until 0.35. And is the highest in the Europe and the highest has ever been. and we don't understand how the cohesion fund is literally trying to not make this happen, let this happen, and we think it's doing a quite a poor job at it, and we ask for a 12% cut.
Okay, I would like to remind the representative of France that if we are producing or if we are proposing a cut in 10%, it's not that we believe that, or we try to make you believe that this fund is working very well. So please show some respect to the Commission. Slovenia, your turn.
So, first of all, we understand your Commission proposal, even though we don't accept it at all. We disagree, and we understand that, of course, we are in COVID pandemic, and this is not easy. So what we are proposing here is a not 10% reduction, but a 7% reduction, or even 5% reduction, depending on how, of course, the bargaining goes on. And I think that countries like Croatia, like Slovenia, like, I don't know, Slovakia, Bulgaria, we need probably more than ever this European support. Thank you.
Okay, your point is clear. The next is Austria and then Poland. Greece wants to say something too.
Okay, so regarding the cohesion and structural fund, our country believes that 10% is acceptable in the sense that it is very important to have a good social, economic, and territorial connection in Europe. It's essential, but we also think that the allocation of funds has been kind of inefficient during the past MFF. So we'd like to reform it rather than cutting 12%. We found that 12% is too much and we still need that fund, but we should reform it. And also, I wanted to point out that some countries need that fund more than others. I was thinking about the countries who are rural and have a lot of mountains, and Austria is part of this country, and we really need that fund to be more competitive and more integrating in the European Union. So I think 10% is reasonable, and if we allocate the funds more efficiently, it could work. So I understand what my colleague Slovenia has said, but I think 5% is too much, and even 7% is maybe a bit too ambitious to envisage.
Okay, Poland, the floor is yours.
Yes, we believe that the cohesion funds are one of the most important funds, especially to Poland. And not only is it one of the most important funds to Southern European countries and Eastern European countries, it's also one of the most visible funds. According to a recent survey by the Eurobarometer, 79% of Polish people have heard about the cohesion funds, compared to the 49% EU average. So a cut to this fund would send a very poor message to the Polish people. It would show that they are not paying attention to their needs and that they are ignorant towards the economic conditions that they are going through. And I'd like to touch on the concerns of efficiency that were raised by Belgium and also the reforms that were mentioned by Austria. I think that the cohesion fund should not be cut, but I'm definitely in favor of it being reformed. One key issue with the cohesion fund is low absorption rates. For example, during the 2014 to the 2020 period, Spain had absorbed only 39% of the money that it was due from the cohesion funds. However, for Poland, this was not an issue. Between 2007 and 2003, we allocated 69% of our funds, and the rest was trapped within major projects. And we believe that the decentralization of our public administration system enabled us to have this better absorption rate. So I think that instead of cutting the fund and deliberately affecting countries within the region my country is located in, we should look at reforming the fund. And absorption rates is one issue we can tackle. There's other things we consider as well, like scrapping the N+3 rule. So we should look at reforming the fund rather than cutting it.
Okay, very clear statement. Next is Greece, and then let me see who else wants to say something. We have Luxembourg, Belgium, Romania. Ooh, there's a lot of people. Let's make groups of 4. Luxembourg, Belgium, Romania, and Finland, and then we will go to this side. Okay. Greece, please.
So we agree with Slovenia. We think that a 5% cut it's okay. Despite the inefficient elements, Greece believes that it's still a good way of combating climate change and also contributing to a more efficient transport and consequently slightly improving economic activities. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Nice for making it clear and quick. I appreciate that. Luxembourg.
Luxembourg thinks that the cohesion fund is quite important towards EU integration, which is what we push for most, due to a lot of it going towards digitization and increasing labor mobility, and also putting funding into training, which helps with labor mobility within the EU and helps just increase our integration as much as possible. We do think 10% is a bit too ambitious of a cut. We think Slovenia had a good point along with Greece. We think that the cohesion fund is quite inefficient, and while Poland is correct that it should be looked into and made more efficient, in the meantime, it doesn't seem like the logical idea to keep the same amount of money into it as it is being put into inefficient places at this time.
Understood. Belgium.
I think I would like to kind of go back to what Poland was talking about. I think reform is already part of the Commission's proposal, streamlining the cohesion fund into 5 major elements, which is what the excess 10% is being reduced because of. That if that 10% was going towards helping the countries that actually receive the cohesion fund without it being wasted or put into kind of the wrong streams, then the Commission would not be reducing it by this 10%. But I think the point is that this 10% is genuinely money that isn't helping any countries, anyone receiving the cohesion fund, which is why they are proposing to cut it by 10%. And I think with this streamlining, with focusing on these 5 major elements, then that 10% cut can be seen as sort of just excess that's not actually being used towards anything. And with Greece, 37% of the overall 37% of the funding towards the cohesion fund is going to the environment anyway, so the Commission have already incorporated that into its proposal.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. Romania is your turn. Finland. Then I'll take the word of Czech Republic, Hungary, Spain, Italy, and Estonia, and then I will do the other group. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to remind to some of the delegates that are part of the group of the Friends of Cohesion that last year on Portugal we made a joint declaration. Well, we state that it was unacceptable to agree on a reduction of the cohesion policy. So I would just like to remind that. Of course, I understand that we need here to reach an agreement, but I will just say that I'm not accepting like a huge reduction of the cohesion funds, because I think it's really unacceptable. And also just pointing out what Polonia said about how these are affected on our citizens, and that they are the real ones that see these cohesion funds reflected on them. I would just like to say that they are also really important for the fighting of the Euroscepticism that is, I think we all are quite important. And then the only thing I would just really like to say is that if I'm accepting any cuts on these funds is on the demanding that there should be an increase on the flexibility on the transfers of money, because the cohesion fund has a lot more funds inside. So just to allow countries to dispose this money depending on how they benefit them inside of the cohesion fund. Thank you.
Okay, that makes sense. Finland.
So just about the reason why there are cuts for the cohesion fund, I think we should remember that There is also the Next Generation Fund, which is, this mitigation package during COVID. And it's a really huge amount of funding that's going to cohesion policies, representing 660 billion euros, which is twice the cohesion fund that we are fighting for at the moment in this multi-financial framework. So I think that if we are cutting the cohesion fund as part of the MFF by 12%, as was proposed by France, this will have such a slight effect considering this, a really big sum that's being brought over by the Next Generation Fund. So you should take this in context when fighting about the cuts.
Yes, I would like also to remind you that the Parliament, the European Parliament, that we don't have a representative here with us today, but they are not quite happy with our proposal. I just have to tell you. But I'm asking for an agreement to you, not to the European Parliament at this moment. Okay, but keep that in mind that they are pushing for a no reduction. Okay. Czech Republic, sorry.
Yes, we share the same concerns as Poland, and so we are not in favor of cutting the cohesion funds. But at the same time, we agree with the point that Belgium, for example, pointed out, and also Poland advocated for reforms, and I think also Austria, that some of these reforms are also already included in the Commission proposal. So, for example, if it would be realized that structural aid for regions only go to European regions that are most in need, for example, that are 75%, only 75% of the GDP of the EU average, and then all this money would actually go to the regions that are most in need, and not to the most affluent, where it would be more mismanaged. So to conclude, we would agree with a slight reduction of the cohesion, maybe not 10%, maybe 5%, when these reforms are incorporated, because we acknowledge that this kind of reform would benefit those regions and our countries that are structurally disadvantaged the most.
Okay, thank you, Hungary. And then I will give the floor to Netherlands, Ireland, and Sweden, and Lithuania.
Okay,
wait a second. Netherlands, Ireland, Sweden, and Lithuania. And next, after Hungary, is Spain, Italy, and Estonia. Okay?
Thank you very much. Well, more or less we're on the same way that Czech Republic. We have been seeing that since 2007, the economic, social, and territorial cohesion has been down almost 5% till now, 2021. That right now it situates 30.5% of the total of 2021-27 agreed MMF. It doesn't seem that much for us, considering the importance of this budget. The cohesion resilience and values, if we look more deep into this, for being more exactly, for example, the regional development and cohesion, there is a 2026.05 billions that it goes for the European Regional Development Fund. That really seems really good for us. For example, for Turkey, 0.19 supports the Turkish Cypriot community. 48.03 cohesion fund, things that really interest us. Things like Erasmus, European Social Fund, Creative Europe, all this comes from this fund. So I really see that to reduce another 10%, this fund, it doesn't make sense for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, Spain, floor is yours.
So in the name of equalizing member states economically so that our internal market can be more efficient, the 12% cut and 10% cut for me is unacceptable since it's a key instrument to, channel European investment and to promote equality between regions and territories. I agree with Slovenia to cut it only by 7%, and I also agree with Austria to reform this fund to make it more efficient. Thank you.
Okay, very short and very clear. Thank you very much. Italy?
We agree with what Spain just said because we think that, as Belgium said, those 10% is not like really used, but we can establish like 7%, and after that we can make like a progression and see if that funds are used efficiently, as Austria was said, and maybe we should change that average after 2 or 3 years. And I want to say that the next generation funds are not forever, so maybe we can readjust that average in some years.
As I said at the very beginning, thank you very much. But as I said at the very beginning, this is a 6-year picture, meaning that what we do every year is to allocate or to use the huge amount. The idea is that we close the amount, and the way we distribute, we will decide it year by year. Meaning that if the next generation funds are meant to be spent during the 22, 23, 24 year 24, up until 25, maybe we can reduce the next generation funds or the spending of the next generation funds during those years. But the overall amount, we need to discuss it now, and we need to close it now, and it's not going to be we change this and we change that in the middle of the whole process, okay? Because I believe this is not serious towards the European citizens, okay? With that said, thank you for your point, Estonia.
I just would like to take an example of our country. Thanks to the different European fund, our GDP increased by 13% in just 15 years, thanks to the different politics and funds like the cohesion funds. Our economy is not the greatest or the best in Europe, but it's in process. And if we cut different funds like the cohesion fund, it can be very damageable to us, even more during this pandemic crisis. And I heard that the most of the country is here want to cut this budget by 7 like Spain and Slovenia, 5 like Greece, or 10 for others, and it can be very damageable for us. And like Romania said before, we were a lot of countries at the summit of Beja in Portugal to say that during this pandemic crisis, we can cut in the cohesion fund because it's the most important thing in Europe, and it permits to interconnected our different countries. And I can be agreed to cut this budget because it can also represent how the EU can be the leader in ecological and digital innovations in so many ways. So I can agree to cut this budget.
Okay, Netherlands. I will take 2 more words after Lithuania, but we need to reach an agreement, and I don't see any. Those last block, I saw some, middle range positions. I don't see many middle range positions, so I will take the last 2 words from Slovakia and Austria, and then we will see if after those 5 people, 5 statements, we can get reach an agreement. Netherlands, please.
Well, as the Netherlands, we would like to actually decrease more the budget, but as in this point of the negotiation, we're actually fine with just staying with a 10% decrease. First of all, I wanted to highlight what Finland said about the cohesion funds, and it's the cohesion funds are really together connected with the next generation fund. But cutting the cohesion fund doesn't mean that we're cutting money that are going to our citizens. We're just cutting it off from the cohesion fund, which is actually a way more inefficient fund than any of the other ones that has spoken for now. And there's actually no efficiency because the cohesion fund just handles too many things. He has too many competencies, and that way there's like too much to handle, and that's a problem. That's why I think we should separate it a bit. For example, let's put an example, the cohesion fund. There's a big part of the cohesion fund that's directed to climate change, but for example, the cohesion funds really go for subdeveloped, let's say, less developed regions, sorry. For example, more developed regions only receive 0.07% of their GDP from the cohesion funds. Meanwhile, less developed regions get almost up to 2% of those funds. And inside the cohesion funds, there's actually the climate change fight. So I feel like the climate change fight should be equal to everyone, not just to more developed or less developed regions. And I'm bringing again the efficiency problem because until we solve the efficiency problem with the local administrations, the cohesion funds are just going to be a black hole that gets a lot of money that could actually be reimbursed in somewhere else or in way better distributed places.
Okay, very clear. Arlen, please.
Ireland is kind of continuing this kind of idea and would like to remind the other delegates that the Cohesion Fund is not the only fund of the structural funds. There's also the European Regional Development Fund, European Social Fund, European Agriculture Fund for Rural Development, and European Maritime Fund. Therefore, as you can see, the Cohesion Fund is only based on the distribution of money only consists of, it's only dependent of the GDP, whilst those other structural funds are tackling some specific areas and are also distributing money. Therefore, you could, for example, see part of the European Regional Development Fund is the goal to have a smarter, greener, more connected and more socially Europe, urban development and infrastructure. As you can see, those kind of also handle the problems we talked about before, but in a more specific and direct way than only distributing money in terms of GDP. And therefore, Ireland would also agree to the Commission's proposal of 10%, like Netherlands, Denmark, Belgium, and Austria.
Okay, thank you very much. It is the turn of Sweden, please.
I following the line of my of Ireland, I think that maybe it's too high because we already have the Next Generation Fund, which already helps the most affected member states by the COVID crisis. So maybe we should reduce this part of the budget and allocate the money in another funds. And we are flexible in the reduction. Maybe 10%. It's not the it's too much, but we will be flexible, not less than 7%. But we understand we are going through a rough time, so we will be flexible.
Okay, flexible, but not less than 7%. So the flexibility is very limited. Lithuania, please.
Yes, from Lithuania, we would like to say that we do not agree with the Commission proposal of 10%. 12%, well, we think it's nearly insulting. So we would really agree with Romania, Slovenia, and Czech Republic with the 5%, but as the negotiations are advancing, we really think 7% would flexibilize these negotiations and help to reach an agreement. We also think that, well, we would propose to invest some of this funding within the cohesion funds towards transparency in these cohesion funds. So
one of the main issues that that has been exposed here can be addressed, which is efficiency. So some of the money within the cohesion funds can be invested in transparency and seeing if this money is invested how the way it should be. So we are keen to hear more proposals about this.
Okay, Slovakia, and then Austria.
Hello, so as Slovakia, we don't agree with the proposed cuts, but we would consider 5%, and we are flexible with it. We have several reasons for this. So as a recent member of the EU, we have benefited greatly from the cohesion fund, and I feel many of my colleagues here have this view of it as just being a form to give money to the poorer countries so that they can catch up. It was pointed out earlier by the Netherlands that it's not equal in the way some funding is. I think 37% of the funding is going towards climate change, yet it is mainly being focused on former Eastern Bloc states and Portugal and Spain. One reason for this is that when it comes our infrastructure, the step from us going from where we are now into using modern, environmentally friendly techniques is much greater than it would be in other parts of Europe, which explains why we need to receive a greater amount of money. In addition, there are also, of course, other economic arguments. I think it was France earlier mentioned the fact that the Gini coefficient in places like Romania has gotten much higher since since they've joined the EU. Quite often, an increase in the Gini coefficient is actually associated with an economy growing, and having our economies grow should be the target of these funds. Not only, of course, is it great for the citizens living there, but as economies grow, research improves, and that may lead us to have more solutions for environmental problems. A short-term fiscal, purely accounting outlook of the effects of these funds isn't going to be good for the EU or the environment, but instead we need to consider the long-term effects that these funds have on us, which is why I don't want us to reduce it too much.
Okay, and Austria?
Yes, I would like to make a proposal. I heard what you said, and I wanted to react also to Estonia, because you said that you didn't want to decrease at all the budget, but I think it's not that very negotiate. Like you should make an effort on that because you have to find a compromise. But I think I could finally agree with what you said. But I think more than 7% is really going to be complicated because, as you all have said, we have the next generation for European Union. And so if my proposal would be to cut 7% instead of 10%, which is the initial proposition of the Commission. And for the countries that we do not agree, like Estonia, it's just for me to remind that there are other plans. There are the European for your regional Connecting Europe facility. There is the neighborhood policy. There are a lot of other plans. So for fighting against climate change, you have other things. With the conditionality, it's going to change for the protection of environment. So I think with a cut at 7%, we should all agree with that budget if we all make an effort for climate change and other subjects with other funds too. It's up to us to getting involved in that fighting.
At this point, we've been talking about this for 30 minutes and 29 seconds, and we don't seem to be reaching an agreement. I see some possibilities, to be honest, but I would give you 2 minutes to talk about it. Remember, one thing I have to tell you in order to face this informal meeting, the next block, instead of doing block 4 and block 5, if you look at your clocks, you will see what time is it right now. So I think we don't have time to do 2 blocks if we take 30 minutes to reach an agreement, which is understandable on the other hand. So we will be discussing the CAP and the rebates or the correction system in the same block. So it might be a tougher negotiation maybe, but keep that in mind when you talk about the cohesion funds. 2 minutes and I want a proposal on my table. I need an answer, please, and we need to start with the CAP. Keep the CAP in mind. Keep the CAP in mind, because there will be cuts on the CAP. And don't fight, please. This cannot start a third world war, okay? Who's going to be the spokesperson for this block? You didn't even agree on who the spokesperson would be? Jesus.
Not France, no.
Finland? What do you mean the majority?
Yeah.
What?
Everyone, yeah, put up your hand if you agree with 7%.
I don't, but I don't like voting. I think that everybody should accept that 7% for the sake of the negotiation, because what's coming next is the CAP. Yes? It's unanimous? It's unanimous? Okay. Okay, so instead of a cut of 10%, we agree on a cut of 7%. Now, this next block, because conditionality of the CAP has been agreed during the ceiling discussion, at least the environmental conditionality. We don't know about the social rights and labor rights conditionality, but on the environmental conditionality has been agreed. And because it's 7:30, I will be very strict with the time. Meaning that we have exactly 20 minutes to discuss the CAP and the correction rebates. I see, and I want to point that out to some of the member states, that I've seen states making concessions in these previous negotiations. So for the sake of the union, keep that in mind when we discuss the CAP. Okay? The Commission has proposed a reduction of 15% on the CAP, and it has proposed to reduce the rebates progressively in the next 6 years. These are the two proposals from the Commission, and if there's somebody that does, I see that Lithuania does not agree on this, and Portugal and Czech Republic either. So I know that everybody wants to say something. Because you see that everybody wants to say something, I would appreciate if you stick to your negotiation position instead of explaining how important the CAP is for your country in terms of how many farmers you have in the most undeveloped regions of your country. Okay? So we need to reach an agreement. Please proceed. Lithuania, you're first. Next is Portugal, and then is Czech Republic. Okay?
Well, for now, I only want to say that 15% is unacceptable for us and many countries in this meeting. Sorry, can we pass the words to, I just went blank.
Well, you don't accept the cut.
No, we don't.
That's clear. That's clear enough for me. Portugal?
We obviously don't accept 12% the cut, 50% the cut, and we would like to increase the cap, but we know it's not possible to increase the cap. So I would like it to keep it the same, but about the correction system, the rebates, it's not gradually. No, you said gradually, right? In the 6 years, we would like
Yes.
the rebates to be eliminated in 2021.
From the very beginning.
Exactly.
Okay. Czech Republic, the floor is yours.
Yes, we also agree. We agree with Portugal. We don't think that the cap should be cut. And we're also in favor of abolishing the rebates as soon as possible because we don't find them just, and we think that they can generate a lot of money.
Okay, I'll stick to this side of the room, so I'll take the words from Slovakia, Austria, and Italy and Estonia, but please be quick, eh?
So yeah, I pretty much agree with Czech Republic on everything. Having the rebates is incredibly unfair, not only between the countries that don't get it, but within the countries that do receive it. And on the CAP, it's one of the oldest parts of the European Union, and the fact that we've kept it probably shows how successful it is, and it's worthwhile us supporting it and not cutting it further.
Okay. Austria?
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I just wanted to point out that for me there is a problem in the CAP, in the structure of the CAP, because this is principally the big firms and which are not always eco-friendly that receive those funds, and I do think it is a problem. So I'm just wanting to make clear that for me the allocation of the CAP, we already spoke about the conditionality, this is a good point. But also, in Austria, we have a lot of little farms, and I believe that our little farms also need that fund, and yeah.
Okay, Italy, please.
We are not accepting the rebates because we think that they are not acceptable, and we are going to positionate about increasing the amount of CAP, because we think that the 10% cut it's not acceptable, because we have a lot of rural areas and the rural regions that can be developed without the cap budget.
I'm sorry to tell you that the cut is 15%, so not 10%, so even think about it. Estonia?
At the beginning of the negotiation, we increased the global MFF by 30 billions. After that, we reduced the cohesion fund by 7%. We put ecological conditionality on every fund. So I think all the previous negotiation could satisfy countries who are actually benefited the correction systems. So I think we can continue with this system, and we should remain the cap budget.
So no cutting 15% or accepting the cut of 15%?
Of the cap budget?
Of the CAP, yeah.
No.
Not accepting, so keeping the same CAP.
We reduce all the other budget, and we increase at the beginning the global MFF.
Okay.
So this money could be allowed somewhere.
I understand. Slovenia, sorry.
So we made an effort before, because even though we told that we were between 5 and 7%, of course it was really important for us. In this cap, we think we don't agree with this proposal, and we are between, let's say, a reduction of 3%, no more. 3%.
So
from 15 to 3%.
So
it's important for us.
I need to digest these proposals. I'll go on this side of the table. Oh no, Lithuania you started, so let's do Finland, Romania, Lithuania, and the Netherlands now.
So as Finland, we would suggest an additional 10 billion euros to be spent on the rural development funds, because they've been extremely helpful in promoting sustainable management of natural resources. And Finland is the carbon sinkhole of Europe, and we have a lot of forestry, a lot of freshwater reserves, and we think it's primordial to preserve them.
So regarding the cut of the 15%, sorry, I didn't...
No, so we do not want to cut on the CAP.
Zero cut on the CAP,
no.
Okay, cool. Romania, please.
Romania don't want any cut on the PAC. I think we already cut too much on the cohesion funds. And we want the elimination of the rebates, but just to give a little bit of flow to this negotiation, I could agree on the Commission proposals for the rebates if we are not cutting on the cap. Thank you.
pretty clear. Thank you very much. Lithuania?
Yes, as my as the fellow states of Estonia, Czech Republic, Romania have just said in this in their interventions, we have made concessions in the cohesion funds, which are really a big pillar for us. And I would like to remind that in previous negotiations in this meeting, we haven't given any problems. I'm speaking about us, Lithuania. So in the cap, we will not accept the cut of 15% nor 10%. So I would like to take for other countries to take this into consideration. The cap is a really big fund for us, not because of the obvious reasons, but also we want to invest money in updating the agricultural sector towards towards a more environmental friendly system, because as we all know, livestock is the sector that that has most pollution. So investing in greener policies would really help the climate change. For now, we won't give a word about the rebates and see how these negotiations are going.
Okay, time's up. Netherlands, make it quick.
All right. I think like right now the pack, I think we should actually decrease it. I think the effort that has been done for a lot of countries could actually suppose that we don't decrease it that much, but within a deduction is necessary because it's a sector that's not so modernized as the other funds. And I think like what we're doing with the pack right now, it's just like putting a patch to something that's broke, because we have to actually modernize the productivity, not just like keep giving money to things that are really outdated. And until we fix this problem about the mismanagement of the cap funds, I think we should keep decreasing, because right now in the midst of the 21st century, it's a really old school that has to be modernized and not just keep getting patched and patched and patched.
Okay, thank you very much. I will start from this side of the table and I will do the other order. Belgium, Luxembourg, Greece, France, Croatia, so everybody. You start, but please, please, please be quick, because this is going to be tough.
Okay, so quickly, I agree with the Netherlands on what they're saying, and I think it's important to keep in mind that the new CAP proposed by the Commission is being streamlined again, much like the cohesion policy, giving more responsibility to member states, therefore cutting out bureaucracy that would cost a lot of money. So this is part of that 15% cut, is that the bureaucracy isn't there anymore. I agree a little bit with Estonia about the fact that they have made concessions. A lot of the Eastern and the Balkan states and Southern states have made concessions, but in the beginning, in all of our speeches, nearly every state talked about how important the environment was to them. So I don't think environmental conditionality is actually something that anyone would have opposed to anyway. So I think that kind of point is a little bit irrelevant in terms of that bargaining power. And finally, I think the only way forward with this will be to balance kind of a rebate versus reduction in the reduction of the cap. So yeah.
Luxembourg.
Luxembourg would like to say that the budget is an absolutely massive part of the MFF, and it has some of the highest levels of corruption and mismanagement, as well as environmental degradation. The parts that are not going to the environment directly fund environmentally unfriendly practices in farming, such as infringing EU waterway protection laws, as well as pays for the pesticides on nature protection land. We believe that there's also the problem of the corruption with places like Bulgaria, where 82% of the cap that is received in Bulgaria is received by the top 18% of farmers. It's just pushing the wealth gap even further and isn't going to the people who are looking for the CAP to make their industries bigger. It's going to the people that are already big so that they can just start to monopolize. This is why we believe that the cap is far too inefficient. We think 15% makes sense, but we obviously believe that we understand that concessions have been made throughout the whole debate, and we believe that a reduction of maybe 8 to 10% would be the most effective use to make as many people in the room as happy as possible.
Denmark, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that Denmark refused to contribute more to the CAP, and that the Danish government thinks that the future CAP should prepare the Europe Union agriculture for global challenges such as increased competition on the world market and those related to climate change, biodiversity, or animal welfare.
But your position being you don't want to cut, right? You stick to the 15% cut.
Yes.
Okay. Greece, please.
Yeah, we agree with the Czech Republic. We don't allow any cuts on the CAP. We consider that the CAP is fundamental for not only the Greek rural areas, but it's a good mechanism for combating, for example, rural exodus and prevent overpopulation in cities and centralization of economic activities and consequently reducing contrast between regions. So yeah, we will not allow any cut.
Yes, France. Unless you bring a very interesting proposal, I'm seeing this is going nowhere, but please go ahead. I want to put the responsibility on you. I'm just trying to say that unless somebody brings a very bright and colorful proposal, I don't see I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel at this moment.
I'll try. France believes that 15% is an exaggerated cut. Therefore, combined with the fact that the agricultural system being 1/3 of global emissions for CO2, and with the environmental conditionality that we applied before, we think that 15% then would be detrimental, because with a 5% cut, for example, we could tackle this problem easily of the CAP being mismanaged and polluting, because as Luxembourg was saying before, but I feel like with conditionality this would not happen, and with 5%, I would like to use also the remaining of the budget to eliminate rebates, since we pay 2 billion a year for rebates, and I think it's just an unfair system that is not based on any economical principle. Thank you.
Okay, Croatia.
We just want to say that we don't want to cut the budget because 50% is not acceptable, so we just agree with the Greece, Portugal, and all the people would not agree with that.
Okay. Let me think about this. At this point, if I keep giving you the word, you will be saying that you don't accept the cuts, or you accept the cuts, but you don't say 15%, blah, blah, blah. Okay, only proposals that are different from the ones that we've done so far. Okay, we've heard 8 to 10% reduction from Luxembourg. We've heard 3% reduction from Slovenia, and we've heard a 5% reduction from the rest, from France and another member, but it's not France. Okay, the rebates have not been taken into consideration so far, or not that much. Okay, Romania has accepted to eliminate the rebates progressively, and I will hear new proposals only. Okay, it will be Sweden because we were in this side of the road, and then it will be Hungary and Spain because they were raising their hands earlier, and then Austria, Slovakia, and Finland. But if it's not going anywhere, I will stop this discussion. I will make it, and you will need to deal with it informally. Okay? So, Sweden, please.
Okay, to make it fast, I just wanted to say that I will agree on just a reduction of 3% if the rebates stay. Otherwise, we will agree on the 50% reduction.
Somebody has introduced the rebates into the equation. Hungary.
Yeah, obviously 15% is way too much.
We've heard that, thank you.
Yeah, so we can agree between 5% or less than 5%, but no more than that.
So you have to think that many countries have made a sacrifice with the cohesion fund, say putting it 7% instead of keeping it as it was or increasing it, and we even increased the overall ceiling. So the 15% minus 15% is unacceptable. I suggest no cuts, but yes rebates.
Okay. This is bringing more options into the table, which I'm not willing to deal with any longer. So you are a grown-up bunch of representatives, and I will open now. I will close the microphone, and because it's a very complicated negotiation, I will give you 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. But bring me, please, a proposal. You have 1 minute to reach an agreement. And next time, when you discuss about administration funds that concern 2 billion to the budget, maybe you need to dedicate less than 30 minutes to it, or less than 21 minutes to it. So you have more time to discuss the more important elements of the European budget. This was the trick of the what do you call it? The organization of the debate. So I know that this has been a tough negotiation. You know how life is. Now you are experiencing in a very stressful and short manner what the negotiations of the European Union budget are. And you can imagine how, multiply this times 10 staff each member state. So this is going to be, it's a mess, okay? So now I'm very happy to hear what you've agreed on. And who's the spokesperson? Finland? Okay, Finland, please.
So we've decided on 3% cuts to the CAP and progressive rebates.
Progressive removal of the rebates.
Progressive removal of the rebates, yes.
Progressive rebates.
Okay. Some people were like clapping their hands already. So you agreed on a 3% reduction on the pack. It seems like a victory for some. And the progressive reduction of the rebates. Can you give me a date or no? In terms, like, it's all in the 6 years?
2023.
We finished 2023?
I think the period of this MMF budget should see the...
So every year, it will be less and less money for the countries that receive rebates. And on the 27, we finalize, or? Yes, we finalize the rebates. Okay, understood. Okay, then. Now, let me make a summary of what you member states have agreed on today. On the first part, you've agreed to increase the overall budget by 30 million, okay, applying environmental conditionality to all the elements of the budget. You are thinking of introducing a plastic tax right away, and maintain the own resources financing by 1.14 of the GNI, right? This is the first agreement. Second agreement, we spent 20 minutes to decide that we would stay to the 74.6 billion money proposed by the Commission, and I really appreciate that. And block 3, you accepted a minus 7% and cut on the cohesion funds, if I'm not mistaken, which goes in line, and the Commission appreciates the efforts made on this regard. Concerning the CAP, on the other hand, we are not that happy, but since this is what you propose, and I'm sure the Parliament will be very happy with the CAP not being cut in excess, so I think that is a good agreement. You've agreed to cut the CAP on a 3%, and regarding the rebates, you've accepted the proposal of the Commission of progressively reducing the rebates. Well, congratulations, this is a very positive agreement, and I would like to thank you all for your time and your dedication to this, and I hope that you had a fruitful discussion. Good job, everybody. Now, if you take your flag and come to the floor, I'll take a picture of you waving your flags to show that you've been part of this discussion, okay?